Chapter 732. Within the Inyang stellar formation, Yan Chuan was battling Li Tsunghai. Li Tsunghai utilized his brush to draw numerous white-colored swords of righteousness. Unfortunately, all the swords of righteousness were crushed into pieces by the grand formation. Heaven's sword. Yan Chuan made a move towards the sky. Boom boom boom. Suddenly, an enormous astral sword appeared above Li Tsunghai's head and pressed down on him with a mighty aura. A stroke of mountains and rivers. Li Tsunghai waved his brush at the sky. A white light in the shape of a large river crashed into the huge sword energy in the sky. Boom. The two forces exploded with a bang. The heavenly sword and a stroke of mountains and rivers canceled each other out. Sword, sword, heavenly sword. Yan Chuan stretched out his hand. Buzz. The sword chi within the formation grew larger and larger. In the blink of an eye, it had transformed into tens of thousands of heavenly swords that shot toward Li Tsunghai. Heaven's sword piercing cold, 10,000 swords returned to origin. Bastard, this is a heaven-grade array? How could he have reached the heaven stage? Li Tsunghai exclaimed. Buzz. Several brushes suddenly appeared around Li Tsunghai, blocking his path. His figure fled towards the outside of the formation. Third level of the middle void stage? It's too late. Yan Chuan's eyes turned cold. 10,000 heavenly swords crashed into Li Tsunghai's defense. Hong. Within the formation, a dazzling white light burst out, shooting straight up into the sky. Just like how Meng Ziqiu was heavily injured earlier, he was bombarded by a huge force. Meng Ziqiu had been severely injured by Li Tsunghai and a group of feng shui masters. Li Tsunghai, on the other hand, had been heavily injured by Yan Chuan's array of spiritual stones. That attack had cost Yan Chuan at least 5,000 high-grade spiritual stones. Boom! The array shook, and a figure rushed out of the array with great difficulty. It was Li Tsunghai. After all, Li Tsunghai was at the middle void stage. Although he could not withstand the power of the formation, he could still escape. Unfortunately, by the time he escaped, he was already in a sorry state. His elegant robe was now in tatters. Headmaster Tsunghai, are you all right? Ming Ling Tian immediately caught Li Tsunghai. Pooh! Li Tsunghai spat out a mouthful of blood, his face deathly pale. His hair was disheveled, and he looked extremely disheveled. Turning his head, Li Tsunghai looked in the direction of the grand array with bloodshot eyes. Within the formation, countless sword chis surrounded Yan Chuan and gradually faded away, revealing a completely unharmed Yan Chuan. It was obvious that Li Tsunghai had lost this round. Yan Chuan. Li Tsunghai's eyes turned cold. I said that no one can touch Meng Ziqiu. Yan Chuan said coldly. He looked at Yan Chuan with a gloomy face. He had told the feng shui master not to intervene, but he couldn't do anything to Yan Chuan. Ming Ling, let's go, Li Tsunghai said hatefully, clutching his chest. Take me to your sect leader and my brother. The rest of you, keep an eye on Meng Ziqiu. The group of Confucian cultivators replied. Some of the feng shui masters left with Li Tsunghai, but most of them stayed around Inyang Peak. After all, the battle was not over yet. Yan Chuan ignored the gazes around him. He retracted the formation, walked quickly to Meng Ziqiu, and supported him. Although Meng Ziqiu was awake, his entire body was trembling. How is he? Yan Chuan looked at Feng Inyang. Headmaster Meng's soul might have been shattered by the dragon vein of the 20 feng shui masters. He can only stay awake for a short while with the help of the dying pill. He can't be saved. Feng Inyang shook his head. What? How is that possible? Yan Chuan immediately placed his hand on Meng Ziqiu's back to check. Chapter 733. Meng Ziqiu grabbed Yan Chuan's hand and shook his head. It's no use. I can't save her. Yan Chuan's face became more and more gloomy. Countless eyes were fixed on them. All the Confucian cultivators stared at them. Emperor of Hell, before I die, there are two things that I can't let go of. Please? Meng Ziqiu looked defeated. After checking, Yan Chuan also knew that Meng Ziqiu couldn't save her. Go ahead. Yan Chuan nodded. Meng Ziqiu smiled bitterly and said, I can see Rongrong's thoughts. That girl is stubborn. Sometimes she can't change her mind. With such a character, it's best for Taoism. Unfortunately, Taoism isn't as simple as that in this world. I hope you can understand her in the future. As soon as Meng Ziqiu said this, Yan Chuan immediately understood. Obviously, Meng Ziqiu knew about the matter between him and Meng Rongrong. Taking a deep breath, Yan Chuan nodded and said, "Don't worry. I'll deal with it properly. Meng Rongrong, I won't let anyone hurt her." Meng Ziqiu closed his eyes with satisfaction. "Also, help me pass a message to Wenrua." Meng Ziqiu's eyes showed a trace of bitterness. "Go ahead. Wenrua is a poor child. Tell him father is sorry for him." Meng Ziqiu said bitterly with a teardrop in his eyes. "I will." Yan Chuan said affirmatively. "Thank you." Meng Ziqiu forced a smile on his bitter face. "Feng Shui Southern Sect is a place of trouble. You'd better leave as soon as possible." Meng Ziqiu said the last sentence, and his voice became weaker and weaker. In the end, Meng Ziqiu suddenly went limp and no longer made a sound. "Din Meng," Yan Chuan called in a deep voice. But at this moment, Meng Ziqiu didn't make a sound. There was a moment of silence. Everyone was silent, but the 20 or so Confucian cultivators of the Yushan Academy secretly sighed. It was as if he was rejoicing. Yan Chuan held Meng Ziqiu's hand. In his palm, Yan Chuan could feel what Meng Ziqiu had secretly given him before his death. "Huoguang, prepare a coffin," Yan Chuan said in a deep voice. Soon, Huoguang took out a huge piece of jade from a flying boat not far away. With a wave of his hand, the jade was quickly cut open. In the blink of an eye, a coffin appeared. Gently placing Meng Ziqiu's body in the coffin, Yan Chuan quietly hid the thing that Meng Ziqiu had given him before his deaths. "Greetings, sect leader." "Greetings, master." Countless geomancers suddenly bowed in a certain direction. Yan Chuan put Meng Ziqiu down and turned his head. In the distance, he saw a black-robed figure slowly flying over. Behind the black-robed figure was a group of geomancers, including Ming Lingtian. The black-robed man in the lead exuded a faint black aura, giving off a gloomy aura. Before he even arrived, the aura of death had already caused the surrounding temperature to drop by half. The black-robed figure wore a black hat, so his face couldn't be seen clearly. However, everyone knew what kind of face was under the hat. "Master." Feng Yinyang greeted the black-robed figure respectfully. It was Li Kanglin, the sect leader of the South School of Feng Shui. Li Kanglin didn't speak. He slowly walked toward the coffin. Although he didn't say a word, he was still the center of attention. He walked over slowly, but Yan Chuan frowned and looked at him. "Master, Senior Meng Ziqiu has already passed away," Feng Yinyang said in a low voice. Li Kanglin walked toward the coffin. Yan Chuan frowned and stopped him. Chapter 734. Hades Emperor, Meng Ziqiu is my master's best friend. Feng Yinyang tried to persuade Yan Chuan. Yan Chuan nodded and slowly backed away. Li Kanglin reached out to touch Meng Ziqiu. "What happened just now?" Immediately, a few Feng Shui masters came out and recounted everything that had happened. Li Kanglin listened to their narration and examined Meng Ziqiu. He sighed when he was sure that Meng Ziqiu was truly dead. Yan Chuan looked on coldly. He kept feeling that something was wrong. After confirming Meng Ziqiu's death, Li Kanglin turned to Yan Chuan. "Men, arrest Yan Chuan," Li Kanglin ordered. "Yes, sir." Boom. Almost 1,000 Feng Shui masters stepped forward, especially Ming Lingtian. He waved his sleeves and summoned streams of draconic qi from the ground. All of the Feng Shui masters looked at Yan Chuan. Li Kanglin was the sect master. All of the Feng Shui masters here listened to him. The Feng Shui masters did not know what was going on, but they had to obey the sect master's orders. Almost 1,000 Feng Shui masters closed in. Wait. Suddenly, someone shouted. The Feng Shui masters paused and looked at Feng Yinyang. Feng Yinyang suddenly stood in front of Yan Chuan and said, "Master, Yan Chuan has contributed greatly to the sky-burying coffin in this Feng Shui ceremony." Ming Lingtian sneered. "Feng Yinyang, get out of the way. Do you want to make an enemy out of your master for an outsider?" Ming Lingtian was intentionally trying to sow discord, and the feng shui masters all around could naturally hear that. Why is that, master? Feng Yinyang asked anxiously. Li Kanglin looked at Feng Yinyang and said, "This has nothing to do with you, Yinyang. Get out of the way. Yan Chuan is trying to disrupt our ceremony. Li Songhai has already informed me. Get out of the way." "Oh, master." Yan Chuan has never left Yinyang Peak. He never wanted to disturb the feng shui ceremony. It's all Li Songhai's side of the story, master. Feng Yinyang said anxiously. "How dare you?" Li Kanglin shouted coldly. "Master, I don't know what Li Songhai said to you, but I, Feng Yinyang, swear on my life that Yan Chuan has no intention of disrupting the feng shui ceremony. Master, if you don't like Yan Chuan, just expel him from the South School." Feng Yinyang Jiaohu said. "Unfilial disciple." Li Kanglin was enraged. "Master, please spare Yan Chuan for the sake of our relationship." Feng Yinyang fell to his knees. Yan Chuan remained silent. He frowned and looked at the feng shui masters around him. Good. I've taken in an unfilial disciple. Today, I'll take you in," Li Kanglin said coldly. Li Kanglin stretched out his hand and was about to hit him. Feng Yinyang knelt on the ground in pain, not daring to say a word. "Sect master, you can't. Feng Yinyang didn't do anything wrong." A feng shui master suddenly cried out. "Sect master, Feng Yinyang has made countless contributions to the school. Please retract your order." "Sect master, Feng Yinyang was just muddle-headed. Please retract your order." "Please retract your order, sect master." Countless feng shui masters begged for mercy for Feng Yinyang. As more and more people begged for mercy, more and more people joined in. In the blink of an eye, more than half of them were begging for mercy for Feng Yinyang. Ming Lingtian's face was extremely ugly. Li Kanglin, on the other hand, was silent. Li Kanglin only managed to suppress his anger when most of the feng shui masters begged for mercy. Looking at Feng Yinyang, Li Kanglin said in a low voice, "I didn't expect this, Feng Yinyang. I've underestimated you." Although Li Kanglin did not finish his sentence, his meaning was clear. He was saying that Feng Yinyang was blinded by his desire for power and incited his disciples to overthrow his authority. "Master, I didn't." Feng Yinyang said anxiously. "Say no more," Li Kanglin shouted. I can let you go, but from now on you, Feng Yinyang, are no longer a disciple of the South faction. From now on, you and I are no longer master and disciple." Li Kanglin's voice was filled with determination. "No, master. You've brought me up. I haven't fulfilled my filial piety." But Feng Yinyang kowtowed and begged Li Kanglin to retract his order. 10 palaces of the left, escort them out of the South faction. Li Kanglin shouted. "Yes." Ming Lingtian and the other feng shui masters shouted. "Master! Master!" Feng Yinyang cried as if the whole world had collapsed. Li Kanglin swung his sleeves and left with a group of people. "Master!" Chapter 735. On the steel airship. Feng Yinyang was still in a daze. Yan Chuan stood at the stern of the airship, looking coldly at the 300 feng shui masters who were escorting him. The leader, Ming Lingtian, sneered at the dazed Feng Yinyang. "Feng Yinyang, you and I have fought for a lifetime, but you lost in the end." "Ha!" Ming Lingtian laughed wildly. But Feng Yinyang was not in the mood to argue with Ming Lingtian. Being cut off by his master was worse than killing Feng Yinyang. At this moment, there was no sorrow greater than a dead heart. Yan Chuan did not try to persuade him. He was only guarding against the feng shui masters. Until they left Nanzong territory. The 300 feng shui masters left. Yan Chuan looked at Feng Yinyang. Feng Yinyang's face was still ugly. The disciples behind him were also expelled. At this moment he did not know how to comfort his master. The atmosphere was extremely gloomy. "Your Majesty, what should we do now?" Huo Guang frowned. "Continue to the north," Yan Chuan said in a low voice. "Yes." The soldiers steered the airship. Yan Chuan took out a ball of paper. Meng Ziqiu gave it to Yan Chuan before his death. He gently unfolded it. Suddenly, a small ball was revealed. Sealed in the small ball was a wisp of greenish-red liquid. Holding the small ball, Yan Chuan looked at the paper ball in his hand. Meng Ziqiu's handwriting was on it. Today, I am going to Li Songhai's residence. This is what I wrote before I left. If there is a disaster, I hope it will fall into the hands of Yan Chuan or Feng Yinyang. The first sentence made Yan Chuan raise his eyebrows. Meng Ziqiu knew that he might be in danger? I don't know if you still remember that last time when Yan Chuan and Li Songhai gambled, I vouched for Li Songhai and asked Li Songhai a question. I asked, did Li Kanglin give the letter to Li Songhai? There was no letter at all. Li Kanglin is my best friend, and I know a lot of his habits and habits. But this time, I realized that this Li Kanglin is no longer the same Li Kanglin. The leader of the South faction, Li Kanglin, had disappeared. Yan Chuan raised his eyebrows. Feng Yinyang calmed himself down and looked over. Mr. Feng, you don't have to blame yourself. The Li Kanglin from before might not be your master. Yan Chuan said in a deep voice. Impossible, I can recognize master's aura. Feng Yinyang bitterly shook his head. Yan Chuan continued reading the letter. Li Kanglin is no longer in the southern sect. I secretly went to Li Kanglin's residence and discovered that the person living in the sect leader's mansion was not Li Kanglin, but Li Songhai. It was Li Songhai. Li Songhai was pretending to be Li Kanglin. Seeing this, Yan Chuan's eyes suddenly narrowed. The previous person was Li Songhai? Indeed, Li Songhai and Li Kanglin had never appeared together. Even when he was chasing Meng Ziqiu and fighting with Li Songhai, Li Kanglin had not appeared. Li Songhai had left and did not return, but Li Kanglin had returned? Li Songhai took over the magpie's nest and pretended to be Li Kanglin. However, Li Kanglin should not be dead yet. If you want to, go find him. I think Li Kanglin should be imprisoned. I don't know how he was captured, but since he was captured, he must be hidden somewhere. That day, I lied to Li Songhai with a fabricated letter. It was all to trick him into asking Li Kanglin about it. Chapter 736. If he did, Li Kanglin would know my intentions. He would mix his blood with the soul fragments and place them on Li Songhai's clothes. With Feng Yinyang's attainments in feng shui, he would be able to find Li Kanglin and save him. Today, I will take back what Li Kanglin gave me. Whether it succeeds or not depends on the will of the heavens. Yan Chuan immediately understood why Meng Ziqiu had been appearing and disappearing so mysteriously. So it was to save Li Kanglin? He continued to read. In the end, if you can't save Li Kanglin, you should leave. I've heard that the southern feng shui sect isn't just opening up the road to the Yellow Springs. It's not just that. Li Songhai is too ambitious, or there are other reasons I don't know. Not only do they want to open up the road to the Yellow Springs, but they also want to use the sky-burying coffin to open the door to the world of immortals. They want to break open the world of immortals. Calamity will follow. You're on your own. Hiss. Yan Chuan gasped. Road to the Yellow Springs? Break open the world of immortals? Yan Chuan's brows furrowed. What's wrong, Hades Emperor? Feng Yinyang asked, puzzled. Yan Chuan handed the letter to Feng Yinyang. Feng Yinyang quickly skimmed through it. Impossible. How is this possible? Feng Yinyang exclaimed. Li Songhai expelled you not because of your disobedience, but because he didn't want you to ruin his plans. Yan Chuan said in a low voice. Feng Yinyang's expression changed. Meng Ziqiu exchanged his life for this. It's your master's blood and soul fragments. If you're willing to believe it, use it to point to your master's location. We'll go with you to save Li Kanglin. Yan Chuan said with certainty. Biting his lips, Feng Yinyang's uncertainty turned into a raging fire. His master was Feng Yinyang's closest person. Now, he was imprisoned? All right, give it to me. Feng Yinyang said with a gloomy expression. He took out a compass and placed Li Kanglin's blood and soul fragments into it. Immediately, the compass began to spin rapidly. Rumble. Over there. Feng Yinyang pointed in a direction. 3 months later, the flying boat was still flying at high speed. Feng Yinyang stared at the compass with a complicated expression. Soon we're close. Feng Yinyang said in a low voice. What is that place? Yan Chuan frowned as he looked into the distance. That's Li Songhai from the Yueshan Academy. He imprisoned my master in the Yueshan Academy. Feng Yinyang's face was extremely grim. The flying ship stopped in the distance. Standing outside a large city, Yan Chuan looked into the distance and saw countless strands of fate churning in the air. Just like the Julu Academy, it was a vast city with a sea of fate clouds above it. However, the Julu Academy had 5 golden dragons above the sea of fate clouds. The Yueshan Academy, on the other hand, only had 3 golden dragons. The group naturally knew how to conceal themselves. Leaving a few people outside the city to stand guard, Yan Chuan and Feng Yinyang quickly made their way into the city. Thank you for your time, Hades Emperor. I can see that you want to stop Li Tsunghai's feng shui ceremony. Feng Yinyang said in a low voice. Yan Chuan smiled wryly and nodded. That's right. Great Jin isn't strong enough yet. Right now, I really don't want to break open the world gate. If the world of immortals invades our world, the world will fall into chaos. Great Jin is still too weak. Then why did you? Feng Yinyang frowned. Because I think it's more important to save your master. Yan Chuan said with certainty. Thank you. If we can save my master and stop Li Tsunghai's scheme, I will ask my master to join Great Jin for 100 years and set up thousands of feng shui formations for you. Feng Yinyang said sincerely. With Mr. Feng's help, Great Jin will have nothing to fear even if we have to face thousands of heroes from the world of immortals. Yan Chuan laughed. You flatter me, Hades Emperor. Feng Yinyang said, a little embarrassed. I'm telling the truth. Let's go and save your master first. Yan Chuan said with a smile. Feng Yinyang nodded. Yan Chuan had seen Feng Yinyang's feng shui skills. They were about the same as Zhen Rou's in his previous life. But even with such powerful feng shui skills, he hadn't received the true teachings of the South School of Feng Shui. According to the South School's rules, the true teachings could only be passed down to one person per generation. Feng Yinyang's feng shui skills were so powerful, but he hadn't received the true teachings. How powerful was Li Kanglin? Yan Chuan's eyes were filled with anticipation. Who's there? Xing. The Jade Emperor's sword instantly killed a Confucian cultivator. Feng Yinyang grabbed the compass and walked step by step toward the mountain range in the city. They walked to the center of the mountain range. They stood in a hidden corner and looked coldly at the valley. 30 Confucian cultivators sat in the valley, each speaking in the language of the saints. Streams of righteous energy flowed into a cave in the valley. There were also dozens of Confucian guards around them. They were patrolling the area. I'll kill all the Confucian cultivators, and you'll set up the formations. Yan Chuan said in a low voice. The two split up, and Yan Chuan shot into the forest. Yan Chuan seemed to have turned into a ghost, drifting unpredictably. Who's there? One of the Confucian cultivators seemed to be on guard. Xing. The Confucian cultivator's throat was instantly cut open. It seems that Li Tsunghai has transferred all the experts of the Yueshan Academy to the Southern Feng Shui sect. Yan Chuan was surprised to see that he could easily kill a Confucian cultivator. Yan Chuan usually didn't bother to assassinate people personally. However, this time, he had no choice but to be an assassin for the sake of Great Jin's prosperity. In the blink of an eye, all the guards fell to the ground. Fog rose around the valley, and the valley gradually became blurry. Clearly, Feng Yinyang's feng shui formation was working. What's going on? The Confucian cultivators sitting on the ground were shocked. Boom! A large amount of sword qi descended from the sky and killed all the Confucian cultivators. Yan Chuan and Feng Yinyang gathered at the entrance of the cave. Master is inside. Feng Yinyang looked at the compass and said in a low voice. The two of them looked at the entrance of the cave and stepped in. This was a cave that led to the depths of the earth. As they stepped in, a large amount of providence slowly spread out. Clearly, the Confucian cultivators had used righteous energy to spread the providence inside. The deeper they went, the more providence there was. Yan Chuan's expression became more serious. Providence? Who else in the world could control it like that other than him? Soon, the two of them reached the depths of the earth. Here, the providence was extremely dense. Yinyang? Yinyang, you're here, My good disciple? An excited voice came from the depths of the earth. Master, master! Feng Yinyang ran in excitedly. Chapter 737. Yan Chuan and Feng Yinyang rushed into the cave. Feng Yinyang's face was full of excitement, but the moment he rushed into the cave, his body suddenly stopped. Yan Chuan also stopped and raised his eyebrows. Disciple, come here. Li Kanglin's voice came from the cave again. Master, why are you like this? Feng Yinyang's voice suddenly became hoarse. At the center of the cave was Li Kanglin. However, Li Kanglin's eyes had been gouged out, leaving only 2 bloody holes. His hands were chopped off and his knees were gouged out. 9 huge hooks pierced through Li Kanglin's body and hung him on his knees. Boundless luck shrouded the interior of the cave. It was to draw in the golden dragon of luck from the outside world. The golden dragon of luck's claws seemed to have shrunk many times and appeared in the cave. 9 dragon claws clasped Li Kanglin's spine. Master, how could this be? How could this be? Feng Yinyang rushed over with a sorrowful voice. He reached out and was about to cut off everything to save Li Kanglin. Don't move, don't move. Li Kanglin suddenly shouted. Master! Feng Yinyang sobbed. I'm already satisfied that I was able to wait until you came. Yinyang, how did you find me? Also, who's behind you? Why is the dragon chi so abundant? Li Kanglin asked in confusion. My name is Yan Chuan, the ruler of the great Zhen dynasty. Yan Chuan said. Dragon chi? Li Kanglin's eyes had been dug out, but he could still see the dragon aura on him. One had to know that in his previous life, even the strongest feng shui master in the Celestial Empire could not see it. Yan Chuan? So you are Yan Chuan? Li Kanglin nodded. He didn't say anything else. Yinyang, how did you find us? Li Kanglin asked Feng Yinyang again. Feng Yinyang quickly explained what had happened. Meng Ziqiu? Sighed. This old man has let him down. Yinyang, if possible, please take care of Meng Ziqiu's children. Li Kanglin said solemnly. Yes, disciple will definitely follow master's instructions. But master, the south school has been occupied by Li Tsunghai. Now, Feng Yinyang said anxiously. Southern sect? Even if the southern sect is destroyed, it doesn't matter. Our feng shui southern sect cultivates feng shui, not merit. Each sect only has one true disciple. As long as the true disciple is alive, the sect will not be destroyed. Yes, but master, what's going on? Why would Li Tsunghai attack you? Feng Yinyang asked doubtfully. Li Tsunghai is a wolf with wild ambitions. Everyone was deceived by him. Otherwise, how could I have suffered such a calamity? Li Kanglin said with hatred. Why would he do that? You are brothers. Feng Yinyang was puzzled. Brothers? Haha, you're mistaken. Li Tsunghai's plan started when he was still in his mother's womb. He started planning even before he and I were born. He's not from this world. Li Kanglin said hatefully. Did he reincarnate in the netherworld? No, not the netherworld. The structure of the netherworld is similar to the Yang realm. Li Tsunghai is not from the netherworld, but the outside world, that's immortal realm you speak of. He's a powerhouse from the immortal realm. I don't know what secret method he used to reincarnate into our world. He reincarnated into my mother's womb. He doesn't recognize this life, only the previous one. Immortal realm? He came down from the immortal realm? Why did he come down? Feng Yinyang was puzzled. He wants to break open the gate to our world and let a powerhouse from the immortal realm, no, an emperor, come in. Unlike an immortal, he wants to open a gate and let the emperor and his kingdom invade our world. Li Kanglin said solemnly. Chapter 738. A full-scale invasion? Yan Chuan raised an eyebrow. But everyone wants to ascend to the immortal realm. Why would the emperor enter our mortal realm? Feng Yinyang was confused. Immortal realm? Mortal realm? Haha, there is no such thing as the immortal realm or the mortal realm in this world. There is only one world, the most fundamental world. Our mortal realm used to be part of the immortal realm in the past. Later, Goddess Jichen used her power to seal this area, Li Kanglin explained. Our place was originally a part of the immortal realm? Was it sealed? Sealed a world? Goddess Jichen? Feng Yinyang exclaimed. In the ancient times, there was a great calamity. The heavens died and the heavenly Tao collapsed. The entire world was on the verge of destruction. All the experts and heroes of the world died in that calamity. Goddess Jichen sacrificed herself to save the world. However, Goddess Jichen wasn't certain that her sacrifice would save the world. Therefore, before she sacrificed herself, she sealed 5 regions to preserve the world's fire. For the sake of our world, we won't be completely exhausted. Li Kanglin sighed. 5 regions? Our world is one of them? Feng Yinyang asked. That's right. Now you know why the emperor entered this world, right? Li Kanglin said bitterly. For Goddess Jichen's Tao seal? Feng Yinyang's expression changed. As expected of my disciple, Li Kanglin laughed loudly. Master, how do you know? Could it be that our lineage is connected to the ancient times? Feng Yinyang asked curiously. Connected to the ancient times? No, when the great calamity happened, our lineage hadn't yet appeared. We were only born later. Our lineage had a powerful enemy, so we escaped to this world, Li Kanglin explained. Enemy? Yes, the enemy is very strong. Maybe I won't be able to take revenge in this lifetime. Li Kanglin sighed. Li Kanglin sighed. Before we entered this world, Goddess Jichen had sealed 5 regions. 3 of them had already been broken and their seals had been stolen. At that time, there were only 2 left. This is one of them. I don't know if the last one is still there. What about the northern sect? Does the Feng Shui northern sect have anything to do with my Feng Shui southern sect? Feng Yinyang asked, puzzled. Feng Shui northern sect? Actually, the Feng Shui northern sect and my Feng Shui southern sect were originally from the same lineage, but we split into 2. I only received half of the inheritance, and the other half is in the hands of the northern sect. Fortunately, the northern sect's sect master is like me and understands the rules. He also only passes the inheritance to 1 person per generation. If you have the chance in the future, go and get the other half of the inheritance. Li Kanglin sighed. Yes. Feng Yinyang nodded. But master, how could Li Songhai have broken into our world? Why didn't you notice it in the beginning? Feng Yinyang asked. It's because of the sky-burying coffin. Li Kanglin said bitterly. Yan Chuan's expression changed, and he looked at Li Kanglin in surprise. At first, I thought that the sky-burying coffin was just an immortal artifact. Li Songhai persuaded me to open the yin and yang worlds, and I agreed. But after years of research, I realized that it wasn't an immortal artifact. I finally know what it is. Not only can it open the path to the underworld, but it's also powerful enough to break open this world. So the legend is true. I didn't expect Goddess Jichen to bury one of the coffins in this world. Li Kanglin trembled in shock. Chapter 739. What is that coffin? Yan Chuan asked curiously. In Yan Chuan's previous life, he had obtained a sky-burying copper coffin when he opened the tomb of the immortals. Later on, he had used that sky-burying copper coffin to bury his body. Now, there was another one in this life? What is it? Why don't you think about it from its name? Li Kanglin said bitterly. Name? Sky-burying copper coffin? Bury heaven? Yan Chuan's expression changed. That's right. As I said before, firmament is dead. Firmament is dead. Legend has it that Goddess Jichen and a group of ancient gods buried firmament in a copper coffin. That copper coffin is called the sky-burying copper coffin. Li Kanglin said solemnly. Yan Chuan raised an eyebrow. Buried firmament in a copper coffin? Sky-burying copper coffin? Later on, the ancient gods used some kind of secret technique to split the sky-burying coffin into 9 different coffins. Chang Tian's corpse also disappeared after that. It turned into 9 empty coffins. At the end of the great ancient calamity, many ancient gods died. Goddess Jichen used these 9 coffins to bury 9 of them. I didn't expect that there would be one in our world. A coffin that can bury firmament. How can it be an ordinary immortal artifact? Li Kanglin said bitterly. There are 9 sky-burying copper coffins in the world? Yan Chuan took a deep breath and exclaimed. Although he was the emperor of the Celestial Empire in his previous life, there were too many powerful people in the world. The Celestial Empire back then was only a small part of the empire and knew very little about the world. Why did Li Songhai banish you? He was afraid that you would ruin his plans. The Feng Shui altar has already been set up. He just needs to mobilize all the Feng Shui masters in the South faction to open it on the 9th day of the 9th lunar month. A Feng Shui master is enough. It's enough. Li Kanglin said bitterly. Master, in the end, is there still a blood sacrifice? Feng Yinyang's expression changed. That's right. I was wondering why Li Songhai invited all the experts of the Southern Divine Continent. He wanted to carry out a blood sacrifice and capture all the factions of the Southern Divine Continent. Once the Emperor of the Immortal World enters, he'll be able to unify the Southern Divine Continent as quickly as possible. Li Kanglin said in a low voice. No wonder. No wonder he chased away the guests from the various holy lands and academies. He didn't want to sacrifice these people and become enemies with the entire world. Although we chased away the various holy lands, we did not become mortal enemies. Feng Yinyang sighed. Yinyang, you're the disciple I'm most proud of. Your attainments in Feng Shui are even greater than mine back in the day. I've always wanted you to pass on my mantle. The will of the heavens sent you to me. Now, Master will pass on my legacy to you. Li Songhai has been forcing me for many years to obtain my legacy. Ha, who would have thought that I would pass it on to you, ha? Li Kanglin laughed. Master? But no. Feng Yinyang didn't understand. Enough nonsense. Sit down. Li Kanglin called out. A semicircular compass suddenly appeared in front of Li Kanglin's chest. No, it was half a compass. It looked like it had nearly 1,000 wheels. Yan Chuan, can I trouble you to stand guard for me and my disciple? Li Kanglin asked. All right. Yan Chuan nodded and walked out of the cave. As soon as he walked out, he heard a voice from inside. Listen carefully, my disciple. In the immortal world, Feng Shui masters are judged by their lineages. The so-called Feng Shui sects are just servants of each lineage. Each lineage only has one true disciple and one Feng Shui master. Our lineage is called Ghost Valley. Li Kanglin said solemnly. Yes, our lineage is called Ghost Valley. Feng Yinyang's voice rang out. Chapter 740. Out of the cave. Yan Chuan smiled bitterly. As a native of the immortal realm, he didn't expect that his understanding of the immortal realm would be worse than the mortal realm. Pulse? Feng Shui masters didn't calculate based on the sect, but on the pulse? A Feng Shui master was just a servant of the master? Yan Chuan took a deep breath. In the past, he only had a general understanding of Feng Shui. Now, he understood the structure of Feng Shui. None of the 5 cultivators in the world were simple. Yan Chuan didn't disturb or peek at the inheritance in the cave because there was no need to. Just like that, they waited for an entire day. Suddenly, roar! A golden dragon roared above the Sea of Providence in the Yushan Academy. Its roar was filled with anger. What's going on? The people looked at the sky in shock. Roar, roar. The other 2 golden dragons of luck followed suit and roared. As they roared, they moved their bodies crazily, causing the Providence to surge. Countless Confucian cultivators in the city looked up at the sky and saw the golden dragons of luck roaring and revealing their bodies. Each of the 3 golden dragons of luck was missing 3 dragon claws. Where were the claws of the golden dragon? Yan Chuan looked at the sky and immediately understood that the dragon claw was not gone. It was cut off by Feng Yinyang and Li Kanglin. Roar! The golden dragon roared and charged into the valley. Rumble! One of the golden dragons roared and swooped down toward the valley as if it was going to tear it apart. Yan Chuan snorted. He waved his hand and the great heavenly seal rose to the sky. The great heavenly seal suddenly expanded 10,000 times and charged at the golden dragon like a giant mountain. Hong! Under the impact of the great sky stabilizing seal, the golden light was dazzling, and the massive impact resounded throughout the entire Yu Mountain City. Back in Yu Mountain City, Countless citizens looked up at the sky, only to witness a shocking scene. With a loud bang, the golden dragon of Providence let out a sorrowful cry. Roar! Boom! The golden dragon of luck let out a sorrowful cry and exploded. You want to go against me without an abbot? Yen Chuan stared coldly at the other two golden dragons of luck. The two golden dragons of destiny didn't fly over. Instead, they stared at Yen Chuan. Humph! Yen Chuan snorted coldly. How dare you? Who are you? How dare you destroy the golden dragon of Yushan Academy? Bastard! Angry roars rose from all directions. A large number of practitioners flew towards the valley where Yen Chuan was. Yen Chuan sneered and unsheathed the Jade Emperor sword. Li Songhai had brought a large number of experts to the southern Feng Shui sect. How strong could the practitioners here be? In a large hall in the southern Feng Shui sect, Li Songhai was pretending to be Li Kanglin as he looked at a group of Feng Shui masters. Sect master, everything is ready. When the time is right, we can open the Yellow Springs path. A Feng Shui master said respectfully. Li Songhai nodded. Ming Lingtian. Li Songhai looked at Ming Lingtian. Any news about Feng Yinyang and Yen Chuan? Li Songhai frowned. I think they've returned to the East Divine Continent. Ha! Ming Lingtian laughed. Chapter 741. Li Songhai frowned, feeling uneasy. He shouldn't have let them go that day. You may leave, Li Songhai said. Yes. Everyone left the hall. Li Songhai was walking in the hall when he heard a dragon's roar. Roar. The dragon's cry was tragic. Li Songhai's expression changed. The golden dragon of destiny? The golden dragon of Yushan Academy? Li Songhai closed his eyes and sensed it. 2 hours later he opened his eyes. Bang! He smashed a chair's armrest. Yen Chuan? Feng Yinyang? I was wondering why I couldn't find you. I sent a large number of experts to the north to stop you, but you went to Yushan Academy? Li Songhai said hatefully. If not for the fact that I had to calm all the Feng Shui masters, I could have finished you off at Yinyang Peak. Li Songhai's expression was ugly. No, how did they know? I get it now. It's Meng Ziqiu. Old man, I was wondering why you barged into my residence that day. So it was you. Li Songhai figured it out. He sulked for a while. Li Songhai's expression turned cold. So what if you saved Li Kanglin? So what if you destroyed Yushan Academy's destiny? You are destined to be too late. By the time you rush back from the Yu Mountain Academy, I will have already opened the entrance. His Majesty will enter the southern divine continent. None of you can stop him. In the future, none of you can escape. Yushan Academy. Rumble. Experts lay in pools of blood in the central valley. Yen Chuan stood at the peak of the mountain, surrounded by the Jade Emperor's sword formation. He looked coldly at the crowd of Confucian cultivators. There were many of them, but the thousands of corpses on the ground made their expressions ugly. No one dared to approach. Why did you come to Yushan Academy? Do you know the consequences of killing us? A great Confucian shouted coldly. Yen Chuan didn't pay any attention to them. He only looked around coldly. The Confucian cultivators looked coldly at Yen Chuan. They were at a stalemate. He froze for half a day. After half a day, there was finally some movement in the valley below. Feng Yinyang walked out. This time, Feng Yinyang wore a hat and carried a white jade coffin. His footsteps were extremely heavy. A coffin? Seeing this, Yen Chuan raised his eyebrows. A coffin? Where is Li Kanglin? A great scholar looked at Feng Yinyang and shouted. Feng Yinyang stared at him. A loud roar rang out, and 10 earth dragon veins suddenly erupted from the ground toward the grand scholar. Boom! The Confucian scholar exploded with a loud bang. Feng Yinyang was very angry. His anger soared to the sky, as if he needed to vent. With every step he took, the earth churned. The dragon veins around the Yu Mountain Academy were all activated by Feng Yinyang. Rumble! The earth was churning, and countless rocks were flying up into the sky. The Yu Mountain Academy was in a mess, with tumbling mountains everywhere. Countless Confucian cultivators in the Yu Mountain Academy screamed. the mountains were tumbling, and the earth was shaking like a tsunami in a storm. For a moment, there were screams and countless casualties. The Confucian cultivators shouted. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The Jade Emperor's sword turned into countless sword shadows, killing all who came. The ground under Feng Yinyang's feet suddenly rose and turned into a mountain. Yan Chuan put away the Jade Emperor's sword and landed on the mountain beside Feng Yinyang. Rumble. The mountain moved out of the messy Yu Mountain City. None of the Confucian cultivators dared to stop it along the way. They could not stop it at all. Not long after, the two of them returned to the flying ship outside the city. Is Li Kanglan dead? Yan Chuan asked. Feng Yinyang felt a pang of bitterness. There's only one master in each lineage. I didn't think it through before, but now I finally understand. There's only one master in each generation. The previous generation didn't ascend to the immortal realm. They all died. Not only did they pass on the art of feng shui, but they also passed on their fate to the next generation. Feng Yinyang said bitterly. Yan Chuan sighed. The dead are gone. My condolences. Yan Chuan sighed. Feng Yinyang nodded. What's your plan? It's too late to stop Li Songhai. Yan Chuan looked at Feng Yinyang. Can't stop him? I'm going back to take the other feng shui masters with me. I'm the master and they're my servants. Why should I leave my servants to Li Songhai? Feng Yinyang said coldly. Huguang, set sail. Full speed ahead to the southern feng shui sect. Yan Chuan ordered Huguang. Understood. Rumble. The airship took to the air. Feng Yinyang looked at Yan Chuan and said solemnly, I, Feng Yinyang, will honor my words. The southern feng shui sect is destroyed, but it will remain as long as I live. I'll fulfill my promise to Dajing for 100 years. With Mr. Feng's help for 100 years, Dajing will prosper for generations to come. You know that Li Songhai wants to bring the emperors of the immortal world into this world. There's a department for feng shui masters in the immortal world called the Imperial Astronomer. Every country has one. Yan Chuan looked at Feng Yinyang. Feng Yinyang took a deep breath and said, I know. Master told me before. I'll join the Imperial Astronomer then. From today onwards, I'll appoint Feng Yinyang as the Imperial Astronomer. He won't be participating in the Imperial Court, but an independent special department of Dajing. Yan Chuan said solemnly. At the same time, the providence cloud above Yanjin in the Dajin dynasty started to churn. Yi Feng, Lu Gang, and the others looked at the sky. Is this the sign of investiture? Lu Gang said in surprise. It seems like His Majesty has found another capable person. Yi Feng looked at the sky and nodded. On the airship. Yes, His Majesty. Feng Yinyang said solemnly. Mr. Feng, you don't have to bow. The investiture is only to allow you to contact Dajing's providence and enjoy it. You don't have to be so polite to me. Just act as usual. Yan Chuan said with a smile. Feng Yinyang nodded. I'll go take a look at Master's corpse. Feng Yinyang said with a heavy heart. Yan Chuan nodded. After watching Feng Yinyang leave, Yan Chuan's face gradually turned serious. Respect for the wise. This was something that every ruler had to know. Feng Yinyang was obviously a virtuous paragon, so Yan Chuan was naturally very polite to him. 100 years? 100 years was enough. Yan Chuan understood that Feng Yinyang did not have much of a sense of belonging to Dajin. He had only joined Dajin because he wanted to repay Yan Chuan's kindness. Such a person had his own pride, especially after obtaining the inheritance of the Phantom Valley. Although his heart wasn't with Dajing now, Yan Chuan still had 100 years. Yan Chuan believed that he would be able to influence Feng Yinyang 100 years later and let him follow Dajing to the other side. Chapter 742. September 9th, Double Yang Day, Southern Divine Continent. Feng Shui Nanzong. Nearly 1 million feng shui masters in black robes spread out around a circular altar that was 1,000 feet in diameter. The circular altar was pitch black in color, and a huge sky-burying coffin was placed on top of it. Dressed in a black robe, Li Songhai led the geomancers to the four corners of the altar. At this moment, the ground was like a gigantic compass, spinning in circles. The first circle was the altar that was 1,000 feet tall. The second circle consisted of Li Tsanghai, Ming Ling Tian, and 100 geomancers. The third circle included all the other feng shui masters. There were millions of them. Almost all of the geomancers in the southern feng shui sect were present. In the fourth circle, the spectators were the various powerful experts of the southern divine continent. Including the large number of disciples that Xiao Xiong had brought along, there were about 5 million of them. There were a total of 4 circles, and they were all completely silent as they looked at the heaven-burying coffin in the center. It was about time. Li Tsanghai looked up at the sky. It's already 5 in the afternoon. Sacrifice. Li Tsanghai ordered. Who? Millions of feng shui masters knelt before the altars in the first circle. At the same time, all the geomancers began to chant cryptic incantations. Although they couldn't understand, the voices were extremely loud and in unison. When the incantation was uttered, the spectators in the fourth circle all felt their minds tremble. Buzz. Suddenly, countless yellow lights appeared on the ground. It was as if there was some kind of power sealed underground that was about to be released. Ang. The tens of thousands of dragon veins surrounding the southern feng shui sect suddenly let out a long cry that shook the 9 heavens. The huge aura shook all the spectators and forced them to take a step back. It was like a surging river. The 10,000 dragon veins all charged towards the altar in the center. Boom, boom, boom. The 10,000 dragons slammed into the altar in the center, and the altar suddenly shot out billions of rays of golden light, which shot straight towards the sky-burying coffin. Buzz. The heaven-burying coffin floated vertically in the air, trembling endlessly. Buzz. As the number of dragons increased, the heaven-burying coffin trembled more and more violently. The space around the first circle of altars seemed to blur. Buzz. Every time the coffin trembled, it was as if it was breathing. It was accumulating power and waiting to be unleashed, carrying a monstrous force. In the fourth circle, among the spectators, there was a cave in the mountain. Tao Lord Yu stood in a hidden place and looked at the heaven-burying coffin in the distance. Heaven-burying coffin? Tao Lord Yu raised her eyebrows. To think that even Maori would make a mistake. Back then, he actually gave it to Guyu so casually. The heaven-burying coffin is no small matter. Tao Lord Yu said solemnly. At the foot of another mountain. There was also a group of special people standing there. There were a total of 5 people, and the leader was a woman. She wore a tight red robe that accentuated her voluptuous figure. She had a head of fiery red hair, and she looked at the heaven-burying coffin in the distance with excitement and anticipation. If Yan Chuan was here, he would definitely recognize that this woman was Meng Hongying, the cousin of his fiancée Zizi. There were 4 people following behind Meng Hongying. They seemed to be her subordinates and were extremely respectful to her. Sky-burying coffin? Even after bearing the 10,000 dragon chi, it still had not reached its limit? What kind of treasure was it? How dare Li Kanglin chase me away? Was he afraid that I would covet this coffin? Meng Hongying's expression changed slightly. Chapter 743. Tao Lord Yu, Meng Hongying, and countless other experts were staring at the sky-burying coffin. In the distance, the sky-burying coffin trembled for a while. Suddenly, it trembled up and down and crashed toward the altar. Hong! The sky-burying coffin crashed onto the altar. The surrounding noise suddenly stopped. Everyone looked over expectantly. Crack, crack, crack. Under the sky-burying coffin, a large number of cracks suddenly appeared on the altar. Boom! The altar shattered with a loud bang, and a huge trench appeared horizontally from where the altar had been. Rumble! The earth trembled, and a trench that was 10,000 feet long and 100 feet wide suddenly appeared. There were some feng shui masters and spectators who were unlucky enough to fall from the sky. Yellow light shot into the sky from the trench. Accompanied by the yellow light, a surge of yin qi gushed out. Woo woo woo. Caw caw caw. Yang qi, it's actually yang qi. Suddenly, thousands of cheers could be heard from the trench. On the walls of the trench, Black figures were slowly climbing up. There were too many black figures, more than 1,000,000 of them. Halfway up, they suddenly fell down, or stepped on one another to climb up along the walls of the trench. There was happiness, pain, excitement, and suffering. The black figures looked extremely eerie in the yellow light, accompanied by a large amount of yin qi. Everyone knew what was going on. Tao Lord Yu looked around. The endless yin qi covered the sky and the sun, blocking out the light of the day as if it was night. The road to the Yellow Springs is open? Tao Lord Yu exclaimed. On the other side, Meng Hongying's face darkened as she said, "The ghosts of the netherworld are crawling along the road to the living world? The connection of yin and yang is a revolution in the world. The world's situation might change because of this." The road to the Yellow Springs was opened, and thousands of ghosts crawled toward the living world. However, the road to the Yellow Springs was too difficult to walk and climb. Halfway up, many ghosts fell down and fell into the netherworld again. However, the ghosts were tireless. They stepped on one another and continued crawling. The people who had fallen into the netherworld were also completely submerged in the endless sea of ghosts. Countless feng shui masters were overjoyed. Li Songhai, on the other hand, had a grave expression on his face as he watched the endless yin energy rush up from the Yellow Springs Road and envelop the southern feng shui sect. Li Songhai seemed to be waiting for something. Li Songhai finally got the chance when the yin energy was completely isolated from the outside world. Sacrifice again. At Li Songhai's command, the 1,000,000 feng shui masters began to chant the cryptic incantation again. Ung, ung. As the earth surged, the cries of 10,000 dragons rang out once again. The 10,000 dragons moved again. However, this time, they did not rush towards the first circle of altars. Instead, they rushed towards the audience area of the fourth circle. Boom! The 10,000 dragons charged into the fourth circle and burst out of the ground. Suddenly, they dissolved into the boundless yin qi, turning into a yellow fog. As soon as the yellow mist appeared, it scattered in all directions and entered the bodies of the powerhouses in the blink of an eye. The feng shui masters kept chanting the incantation. Among the powerhouses in the fourth circle, "Master, what's wrong?" Everyone looked at the red-robed sect master. The sect master's eyes were bloodshot. Suddenly, a vicious aura radiated from him. "Master? Why are your eyes red?" "Ah, junior brother, your eyes are red too?" "Martial uncle, why are your eyes red too?" The disciple cried out in panic. It was right to panic, but it was too late. The red-eyed crowd seemed to have lost their minds in an instant. They attacked the disciple who had spoken. Boom! The disciple exploded with a loud bang. Not even his bones remained, but his blood suddenly spurted into the sky and rushed towards the sky-burying coffin along with the yin energy. After killing the disciple, the red-eyed crowd continued to fight each other as if their hatred had not been quelled. Everyone who was tainted by the yellow mist lost their minds and became violent. Kill, 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 kill. Fighting broke out in the crowd of spectators. Rumbling sounds could be heard everywhere, and the power of the fighting was vast. As long as someone died, their blood would be sucked out by an invisible force and sent into the heaven-burying coffin. Help! Roar! The fourth circle was a mess. Below the first circle was the road to the underworld, and above it, the sky-burying coffin was absorbing endless blood and trembling again. Li Songhai looked around coldly. In the distance, what a strong corrosive power! Taoist Lord Yu sensed the yellow mist in surprise. Taoist Lord Yu barely blocked the yellow mist corrosion. On the other side, Meng Hongying and her 4 subordinates were not affected by the yellow mist either. A white stone-like Dharma treasure appeared in Meng Hongying's hand. It was the size of a fist. It was the holy light stone that Yan Chuan had used to forge the god sword. Meng Hongying activated the holy light stone. A large amount of white light shrouded the 5 of them and blocked the yellow mist corrosion. Blood sacrifice? Li Kenglin wants to sacrifice all the powerhouses in the southern divine continent? What is he doing? Meng Hongying looked into the distance in surprise. Boom! Kill! Those who stand in my way shall die. The powerhouses were fighting each other. Their essence blood was sucked into the sky-burying coffin. Taoist Lord Yu Yu and Meng Hongying watched coldly. They had no intention of interfering. Both of them wanted to know what the southern sect of Feng Shui was doing. This slaughter lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. It was a frenzied slaughter that was extremely tragic. A large number of experts were buried, and those who survived were heavily injured. They were on the verge of death. The sky-burying coffin trembled even more violently. Li Songhai looked at the sky-burying coffin. "Not enough, Mingling." Li Songhai yelled. "Yes." Mingling Tian narrowed his eyes. He waved his hand and the 100 Feng Shui masters in the second circle all took out a Dharma treasure and waved it. Boom! The power that separated the fourth and third circles from the yellow mist seemed to have suddenly disappeared. The yellow mist rolled toward the Feng Shui masters in the third circle. Some of the Feng Shui masters screamed. "Master, why?" "Sect Master, no." "Sect Master, why?" The Feng Shui masters screamed. "Sect Master wants to sacrifice us? Why?" The sky-burying coffin trembled as if it was twisting space. Li Songhai was in a good mood. He looked at the terrified Feng Shui masters and said, "Haha, I'm not Li Kenglin." Chapter 744. "Haha, I'm not Li Kenglin." Li Songhai laughed. The Feng Shui masters in the third circle were stunned. "Li Songhai!" One of the Feng Shui masters roared. "It's too late." Li Songhai swung his sleeves and laughed. "Bastard! Where's my master? Where's the sect master?" The Feng Shui masters nearby rushed over in a frenzy. Buzz! Between the second and third circles, a transparent yellow wall suddenly appeared, blocking the group of geomancers outside. Boom! 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 The Feng Shui masters bombarded the building but failed to open it. They were furious. "Mingling, you bastard! You betrayed the sect. You betrayed the South sect." 100 Feng Shui masters stood behind Li Songhai and looked coldly at the Feng Shui masters outside. Most of the spectators in the fourth circle were dead. The yellow mist rolled in, and more Feng Shui masters lost their minds. They only knew how to kill. Kill, kill, kill. The Feng Shui masters were always powerful. With a wave of their hands, the Feng Shui changed and dragon veins appeared. The earth in the third circle churned as the Feng Shui masters summoned dragon veins to fight each other. Kill, kill, kill. The slaughter was fierce, but that was not the most terrifying thing. The most terrifying thing was the rolling yellow mist. Anyone who came into contact with it would quickly lose themselves. Some of the Feng Shui masters who were close to the Yellow Springs Road jumped down. A Feng Shui master jumped down, but before he could reach the depths, he was caught by a ghost. Rip! Ka. The Feng Shui master was torn apart by a group of ghosts in the blink of an eye. However, the Feng Shui masters jumped down without hesitation. They understood the yellow mist very well. If they stayed, they would die. If they entered the Yellow Springs Road, they would have a chance to enter the netherworld. Kill. Outside the circle, the Feng Shui masters were killing each other. Li Songhai and the others watched coldly. A large amount of blood was drawn into the sky-burying coffin. After another 5 days and 5 nights, the Feng Shui masters were almost all dead. Only 10% of them escaped to the Yellow Springs Road, and it was unknown how many of these 10% would make it to the netherworld alive. Buzz! The heaven-burying coffins suddenly trembled, and a large number of cracks appeared in the surrounding space. Li Songhai and the others looked over. In the distance, Meng Hongying and Dao Lord Yu Yu were also staring intently. The two of them did not expect that Li Kenglin was a fake. Li Songhai? Dao Lord Yu Yu took a deep breath. Meng Hongying narrowed her eyes. Until the sky-burying coffin moved. The sky-burying coffin fell from the sky and smashed into the road to the Yellow Springs. When half of it hit the road to the Yellow Springs, it seemed to have hit something solid. Hong! A deafening explosion shook the 9 heavens. The earth around the southern Feng Shui sect quaked violently, and cracks spread out from the heaven-burying coffin. Under the powerful impact, the yin qi and yellow mist around the southern Feng Shui sect exploded. A powerful gust of wind blew from the sky-burying coffin in all directions. Wherever it passed, trees, mountains, rivers, and even palaces were razed to the ground. Chapter 745. Even where Meng Hongying and Dao Lord Yu were, it was razed to the ground, exposing the two parties. They flew into the sky and looked at the road to the yellow springs that the sky-burying coffin had crashed into. Half of the sky-burying coffin was in the world of the living and the other half was in the road to the yellow springs. And at the place where the road to the underworld crashed, a hole suddenly appeared out of thin air. The hole was extremely strange. Endless yin qi came out from it. It was no different from the road to the yellow springs, but it exuded a great deterrence. It was as if there was an army on the other side of the hole. A fierce aura surged out of him. Rumble! Dark clouds suddenly covered the sky above the sky-burying coffin, as if a heavenly tribulation had descended. The hole in the sky-burying coffin was slowly expanding. It was originally 100 feet in diameter, but now it was 200 feet wide. And it was still expanding. Shattering the void? That's shattering the void? It broke open the gates of the immortal world? Meng Hongying exclaimed. The sky-burying coffin? It can even break open the gates of the immortal world? What Dharma treasure is that? What Dharma treasure is that? Immortal treasure? No, it's definitely more than that. Dao Lord Yu said excitedly. Whoosh! Dao Lord Yu rushed toward the sky-burying coffin. Li Songhai looked at the sky and his expression changed. Dao Lord Yu, what are you doing? Li Songhai exclaimed. Ha, what am I doing? Li Songhai, the sky-burying coffin used to be the Dharma treasure of the Guyu holy son of the Dazhao sacred ground. It belongs to the Dazhao sacred ground. Today, I'm just taking it back. Dao Lord Yu said excitedly. Stop him, stop him. Li Songhai shouted. Yes. The 100 feng shui masters shouted at the same time and then activated the yellow transparent wall outside the second circle. Boom! Dao Lord Yu struck it with his palm. The yellow transparent wall shook violently. The feng shui masters were shocked and took a step back. However, they still managed to stop Dao Lord Yu. Roar! The feng shui masters activated again. Li Songhai, you're only at the middle void realm. These geomancers, they're only at the middle void realm and the lower void realm. Some of them are even at the immortal realm. Do you think you can stop me? Yu use palm again. Boom. Pooh. 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 A large number of feng shui masters were shocked to the point of vomiting blood. Li Songhai's expression changed. Li Songhai bowed respectfully at the entrance and said, Your Majesty, there are enemies obstructing us. I implore Your Majesty to grant me the power of my previous life and buy time for Your Majesty. Your Majesty? Dao Lord Yu and Meng Hongying raised their eyebrows. There was someone else on the other side? Permitted. From the other side of the entrance, an extremely dignified voice suddenly sounded. The voice was filled with a condescending tone. Boom! A streak of blue light shot out of the opening, and a human-shaped ball of light shot towards Li Songhai. Li Songhai opened his arms and flicked his wrist. The humanoid blue light shot into Li Songhai's body. Rumble! Li Songhai's aura suddenly skyrocketed. A whirlwind seemed to have formed under his feet. Li Songhai's aura continued to rise. Blue light shot out from Li Songhai's body. Dao Lord Yu stopped and looked at Li Songhai in surprise. The power of his previous life? Your Majesty? Li Songhai? Breaking through the void? Dao Lord Yu's expression changed. Dao Lord Yu suddenly grabbed a crescent-shaped Dharma treasure. Dao Lord Yu grabbed the Dharma treasure and slashed at the yellow transparent wall with a ferocious expression. Chapter 746. Boom! The yellow transparent wall was shattered by the ferocious attack. Hundreds of feng shui masters were sent flying, coughing up blood. They were severely injured. 3 of the weaker feng shui masters even exploded on the spot under the force of the recoil. The power of an upper void realm cultivator was overwhelming. Dao Lord Yu did not hesitate and pounced on the sky-burying coffin. Raging sea waves. Li Songhai suddenly shouted. Boom! Li Songhai threw a palm strike at Dao Lord Yu. Dao Lord Yu paused and faced the palm strike. Boom! When the two palms collided, a huge storm was created and swept out in all directions. The feng shui masters who had just been seriously injured could not withstand the power of the storm and were all blown away. Upper Void Realm? Tao Lord Yu Yu's face darkened. Heavenly River Reversal? Li Songhai waved his hand again. A huge river seemed to appear out of nowhere and swept toward Tao Lord Yu Yu. Li Songhai chased after the river and closed in on Tao Lord Yu Yu. Boom! Under the huge spell, Li Songhai immediately pulled Tao Lord Yu Yu away from the battlefield. He flew into the sky. Above the two of them, there was a huge dark cloud with flashes of lightning. Meng Hongying looked at the sky. Li Songhai has reached the upper void realm. He can't pass the tribulation in time. However, this tribulation won't hurt them. The fight between the two tigers is going to benefit me. Meng Hongying flew toward the sky-burying coffin excitedly. The feng shui masters were all severely injured and Meng Hongying was the only one who could benefit. Meng Hongying? It's you. The feng shui masters on the ground looked at Meng Hongying in surprise. The feng shui masters led by Ming Lingtian got up with difficulty and were about to attack the sky. Stop them, Meng Hongying said to the four servants. Yes. The four of them attacked the feng shui masters at the same time. Meng Hongying flew to the sky-burying coffin. The sky-burying coffin was still trembling. As it trembled, it emitted an incomparably dense energy. Treasure, treasure. Meng Hongying reached out to grab it excitedly. Just as Meng Hongying was about to grab the sky-burying coffin, suddenly, dense yin qi gushed out from the hole created by the sky-burying coffin. The yin qi surged and instantly enveloped the surroundings. In addition to the yin qi, there was also a skeleton claw that was hundreds of feet long. The huge skeleton claw, with an extremely strong aura of death, suddenly grabbed the sky-burying coffin. Clang! The huge skeletal claw grabbed the sky-burying copper coffin. Suddenly, a strong golden aura emanated from the claw and wrapped around the sky-burying copper coffin. Boom! The golden aura broke free from Meng Hongying. Little girl, do you think you can touch my things? A majestic and angry voice came from the opening. At the same time, an airship was flying in from the east of the southern feng shui sect. Soon, Yu Yi said excitedly. Standing at the bow of the ship, Yen Chuan and Feng Yinyang looked into the distance. Boom! The storm raged, razing everything to the ground. It's too late. We can't make it in time. Feng Yinyang said bitterly. Yen Chuan stared into the distance. The airship continued to fly quickly. Soon, Yen Chuan saw a huge battle taking place in the distant sky. A storm appeared in the sky. Two forces were fighting fiercely. Yen Chuan vaguely saw the two people in the sky. Tao Lord Yue, Li Songhai. Li Songhai has reached the upper void realm? Yen Chuan's face darkened. Chapter 747. Little girl, do you think you can touch my things? A majestic and angry voice came from the opening. Golden aura surged from the skeleton's palm into the sky-burying coffin. The sky-burying coffin was also wrapped in a thick layer of luck. So what if you're from the immortal world? Meng Hongying snorted. Meng Hongying knew how powerful the opponent was, but she could tell that the opponent was not able to get through. The temptation of the sky-burying coffin was too great. She waved her hand. Meng Hongying lashed out a red whip and coiled it around the coffin, pulling it up at the same time. At the same time, Meng Hongying used her other hand to hit the skeleton claw. A huge red palm print suddenly appeared in the void and slammed into the skeletal claw. Boom! The skeleton claw did not move at all. You're courting death. A cold voice came from the other side of the hole. With a cold shout, more providence appeared around the skeletal claw. It broke free from Meng Hongying's whip. Ang! A dragon roar came from the luck outside the sky-burying coffin. Following the dragon's roar, a huge dragon head suddenly emerged from the surrounding fortune. It was the golden dragon of luck. The dragon head soared into the sky. Luck surged out from the coffin. The golden dragon of luck was extremely majestic. As the dragon swung its whiskers, lightning flashed in the void. The dragon tail swung. Boom! Meng Hongying was sent flying by the tail. The 30,000-foot-long dragon head bared its teeth with a ferocious expression as it charged into the tribulation clouds in the sky. Hong! Under the impact of the golden dragon of luck, a large hole suddenly appeared in the vast tribulation cloud. The tribulation clouds could not be removed, but they could not stop the golden dragon of luck's attack. A huge hole was created for the luck to soar into the sky. Providence soared into the sky, increasing continuously. The hole grew bigger and bigger, and the luck surged out more and more. Along with the luck, the yin chi on the other side of the hole also surged out. Endless yin chi. Seeing this, Meng Hongying knew that she had met her match this time. Meng Hongying turned around and was about to flee. "Little girl, you're only thinking of running now?" The voice on the other side of the mouth was cold. The skeletal claw holding the sky-bearing coffin suddenly moved. The yin chi in the surroundings quickly gathered and turned into specters. Their eyes emitted a green glow as they pounced on Meng Hongying. Woo 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 woo. The spirits were like clouds of ghostly fog. Their eyes glowed with green light and they were extremely fast. More importantly, there were tens of thousands of them. Boom! In the blink of an eye, it enveloped Meng Hongying. Bastard! Meng Hongying swung her whip and a dozen spirits were destroyed. However, there were too many of them. And it was still increasing rapidly. The spirits were weak and could not even hurt Meng Hongying, but there were many of them. Woo 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 woo. Meng Hongying was wrapped in 3 layers like a dumpling. The spirit pulled at Meng Hongying, making it harder and harder for her to use her power. Sacred Light Stone. Meng Hongying anxiously activated the Sacred Light Stone. The spirit screamed and disappeared after being purified by the Sacred Light Stone. However, there were still too many of them. As the hole grew bigger, the number of spirits increased exponentially. The area that originally only covered Meng Hongying became 1,000 feet wide area. Then, it became 100,000 feet wide area. 100,000 feet. 1,000,000 feet. Chapter 748. The spirits were like a sea of locusts, blotting out the sky. Go away, go away. Meng Hongying was extremely anxious. She did not manage to escape earlier. How could she escape now? Meng Hongying felt like crying when she saw the hole getting bigger. She could not do anything about the spirits. What about the person who spoke just now? Meng Hongying waved her long whip madly and activated the Holy Light Stone. But there were too many spirits. Karmic luck surged in the sky, growing larger and larger. Gradually, a sea of fortune formed in the sky, surging with monstrous fortune. In the distance, a flying boat stopped in the outside world. Feng Yinyang stood on the flying boat and said hatefully, "Li Tsunghai used the South Faction's Feng Shui master as a blood sacrifice. How cruel, how cruel." Meng Hongying? Yan Chuan saw Meng Hongying, who was surrounded by thousands of spirits. Zizi's cousin. Meng Hongying was responsible for Zizi's serious injury. But it was also because of her that Zizi was saved. How is Zizi now? Your Majesty, shall we go? Feng Yinyang looked at Yan Chuan. Feng Yinyang could naturally sense the terrifying aura around the sky-burying coffin. Feng Yinyang knew that his group would be like moths to a flame if they tried to snatch the sky-burying coffin. In order to save Yan Chuan's face, she proposed to leave. Yan Chuan looked at the sea of providence in the sky. It was still expanding. Moving the capital? The providence of the Celestial Empire? Yan Chuan was surprised. Your Majesty? Feng Yinyang, I know what you're thinking. But we can't leave now. We're too close. Yan Chuan shook his head. You don't know what the Celestial Empire is. Once he succeeds in moving the capital, the Celestial Dynasty's divine statue will be able to capture us within 1,000,000 miles. 1,000,000 miles? There are tens of thousands of dragon veins in the southern sect. Aim these dragon veins and dragon heads at the heaven-burying coffin. Use the raging dragons to block the transfer of fate energy and delay his relocation of the capital. We will leave then. Yan Chuan said in a deep voice. Feng Yinyang replied. Feng Yinyang quickly jumped off the flying boats. Yan Chuan also rushed inside. Xing. The god's sword appeared and escorted Yan Chuan to the center. Woo woo woo. Countless specters suddenly discovered Yan Chuan and quickly rushed toward Yan Chuan. Buzz! The god's sword trembled, and suddenly a vast white light gushed out. Wherever the white light passed, the spirits were all terrified. Bah! The nearby spirits were quickly purified in fear. Meng Hongying's fist-sized holy light stone was enough to purify a large number of spirits, let alone Yan Chuan's holy light stone. The god's sword continued to purify the spirits. Yan Chuan quickly rushed toward the center of the spirit sea. However, there were too many spirits, and they seemed to have no intelligence. They kept rushing toward Yan Chuan. The spirits were getting closer and closer. Even though many of them had been purified, they were still coming. They were about to catch Yan Chuan. Yan Chuan was also close. Yan Chuan suddenly shot out a long whip from his left wrist and instantly wrapped around Meng Hongying. Meng Hongying struggled in the spirit sea. Her legs and waist were entangled by the spirits. It was as if she had fallen into a swamp and could not move. Meng Hongying was so anxious that she was about to cry. Suddenly, a green vine wrapped around her waist. Chapter 749. Boom! Meng Hongying was pulled over instantly. Bang! Before Meng Hongying could react, she was pulled into Yan Chuan's arms. Chest to chest. It's you? Meng Hongying was surprised. Yan Chuan did not want to waste time talking to her. He saved Meng Hongying and turned around to leave. There were too many spirits behind them. Miss. For people were Jiaohu on the way back. Your men? Yan Chuan asked while hugging Meng Hongying. Yes. Sush. Another vine whip was lashed out and wrapped around the four men in the blink of an eye. They returned quickly. The god's sword shone and purified the spirits around them. The further they went, the fewer spirits there were. Gradually, everyone was safe. What kind of sword is that? Meng Hongying looked at the god's sword above Yan Chuan's head in surprise. Yan Chuan did not say much. Instead, he looked into the distance and saw that the ground was bulging in more than 10 places. Roar! Roar! For a moment, the ground was filled with dragon roars. Under Feng Yinyang's control, the dragon veins crashed toward the center of the coffin. The dragon veins charged toward the sky-burying coffin in a destructive manner as if they were angry. Boom! 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 The series of impacts caused the providence that was rushing out to suddenly stop and then flow back. Bastard! Monstrous anger came from the sky-burying coffin. However, it could not stop the flow of providence because more and more dragon veins were charging toward it. Boom! 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 The sea of providence rolled back, leaving only a hole. The emperor on the other side was furious. Your Majesty! I have fulfilled my mission. Feng Yinyang flew onto the flying ship. Yan Chuan had also just returned. Let's go, Yan Chuan said. Huo Guang replied. Rumble. The flying boat quickly flew towards the north. Meng Hongying's four subordinates landed on the flying boat while Yan Chuan was still hugging Meng Hongying. Meng Hongying was also dumbfounded by the series of events in front of her. Why is Yan Chuan here? What kind of sword was that? Did Yan Chuan destroy the plan of the expert on the other side of the opening? The emperor? While Meng Hongying's thoughts were in a mess, Yan Chuan suddenly said, Miss Meng, please let go. It's safe now. Could you please let go? Meng Hongying suddenly realized that she had been hugging Yan Chuan so tightly that her breasts were deformed. Everyone was staring at them. Yan Chuan had already moved his hand away. It was as if she was hugging Yan Chuan and refusing to let go. Meng Hongying's face reddened in embarrassment. She quickly let go and retreated a distance. The flying boat quickly flew towards the north. However, Yan Chuan stood at the stern again and looked at the rolling spirit sea in the distance. And the providence in the sky. With the impact of the dragon veins, the providence rolled back. Not long after, it all flowed back against the current. Bastard! An angry roar came from the other side of the opening. Outside, the dragon veins were still in the midst of impact. Another voice came from the other side of the opening. Imperial astronomer, prepare to move the capital for the second time. Command from the Ministry of Rights. All armies and officials, enter in an orderly manner. Do not mess up. I will go first. Long live. Long live. Long live. Long live. On the other side, it was as if thousands of soldiers and horses were cheering for this moment. Chapter 750. King of Gaia. On the flying vessel, everyone stared fixedly at the battlefield in the distance. The great earth dragon vein struck the heaven-bearing copper coffin time and time again, causing the karma to flow in reverse. However, the hole created by the heaven-bearing copper coffin was expanding continuously. Countless spirits appeared rapidly. They did not have intelligence and merely flew around instinctively. Thankfully, it was already night time. Otherwise, those spirits would definitely be severely injured under the sunlight. A bright moon rose into the sky. High in the sky, Li Songhai fought against Tao Lord Yuyu. Li Songhai waved his hand and a galaxy seemed to have appeared in the sky, crashing towards Tao Lord Yuyu. Under the torrential impact, the surrounding air let out loud explosions. Boom, boom. Even from far away, one could feel the surging power of this star river. Tao Lord Yuyu's eyes turned cold as he pointed to the sky. Boom! Above the bright moon, an intense beam of moonlight shot down and enveloped Tao Lord Yuyu. For a moment, silver light shone around Tao Lord Yuyu, as though he had turned into the moon. The moon charged towards the galaxy. Boom! Boom! The sound of the explosions grew louder and the powerful tremors caused countless spirits below to tremble violently. Some of them were even dispersed on the spot. Above the galaxy, countless stars were sent flying by the moon. The moon collided with Li Songhai. Tao Lord Yuyu wielded a crescent-shaped Dharma treasure and aimed it at Li Songhai with the outer arc of the moon, suppressing him from the sky. Tao Lord Yuyu's face was ferocious, but Li Songhai's expression changed. In a hurry, Li Songhai waved his brush towards the sky. Lousy brush, how dare you block my moon crescent wheel? Tao Lord Yuyu sneered. Boom! The brush and wheel collided. Tao Lord Yuyu suppressed Li Songhai with a tremendous aura, causing him to fall rapidly. Swoosh! He fell from the sky and landed on the ground below. Boom! Li Songhai landed on the ground with a loud stomp that shook the surroundings. From beneath his feet, the ground seemed to form a gigantic shockwave that spread in all directions, pushing a layer of the ground for more than 50 kilometers. The brush and wheel were in a stalemate as Li Songhai struggled bitterly. Tao Lord Yuyu, however, smiled. That's all. Lord Yuyu's way. Crack. Li Songhai's brush snapped in two, and the crescent wheel fell straight down. Tao Lord Yuyu's eyes were ferocious as though she wanted to kill Li Songhai on the spot. Just as Tao Lord Moon was completely engrossed in the battle and was filled with bloodthirsty excitement, in the outside world, a blue scepter suddenly flew in and struck the moon crescent wheel. Dang! Li Songhai took advantage of the opening to flee. The collision of the scepter caused Tao Lord Yuyu to wake up abruptly. She turned to look at the place where the scepter collided. At the intersection of the yellow springs, where the sky-burying coffin was. Slowly, a huge figure emerged from the huge hole. A sinister wind blew, and the aura of death soared to the sky. As the huge figure emerged from the hole, the tribulation clouds in the sky were still there, but there was too much yin qi, so much that it completely drowned the tribulation clouds. A gigantic body emerged from the opening. Just its gigantic head alone was over 1,000 feet in size. The head was wearing a black hood. A gigantic head could be vaguely seen within the black hood. It was a human-shaped head, but there was no flesh. It was a gigantic skull. On top of the skull, where the eyes were, a faint blue light was emitted. Chapter 751. The giant skeleton was still rising slowly, higher and higher. It was wearing a black robe with a hood and was more than 10,000 feet tall. It slowly emerged from the opening. The sinister wind wreaked havoc, causing the huge black robe to billow in the wind. It was like a banner fluttering in the wind. The 1,000-foot-tall skeleton exuded a boundless aura of death that surged in all directions. With each step he took, the ground within 1 kilometer of him froze, and frost fell to the ground. Standing in the wind, this single skeleton looked like an army of thousands upon thousands of men and horses, pressuring them. "Thank you, Your Majesty." Li Songhai bowed respectfully to the 10,000 feet tall skeleton. Your Majesty? Your Majesty, is this giant skeleton? The 10,000 feet tall skeleton held the sky-burying coffin in one hand and the blue scepter that was growing in size in the other, staring at Tao Lord Yuyu. In this world, there is no heavenly tribulation chasing you. This means that you are also in the upper void realm. Hand over the sky-burying coffin. Tao Lord Yuyu said coldly. Sky-burying coffin? Do you think you can touch my things? The giant skeleton said coldly. Stubborn. Tao Lord Yuyu snorted coldly. He reached out and the moon wheel in his hand suddenly enlarged. In the blink of an eye, it became 10,000 feet tall and flew into the sky. Whoosh! The power of the moon essence poured into the moon wheel. The moon wheel suddenly emitted billions of rays of light and fell from the sky, slashing down at the giant skeleton. The giant skeleton snorted and waved the scepter in his hand. With a wave of the scepter, the yin qi in the surroundings gathered and collided with the moon wheel with an aura of death. Boom! The surrounding ground, which was 100 miles wide, exploded. Soil and stones soared into the sky, and the aftershock brought with it a strong explosive force. The main body of the collision, the moon wheel, was broken. The powerful moon wheel was completely destroyed by the giant skeleton scepter. The scepter's power did not decrease and smashed towards Tao Lord Yuyu. When the moon wheel was broken, Tao Lord Yuyu's mind was affected. Instantly, his blood qi surged and his expression changed drastically. However, it was too late. The scepter smashed down and locked onto him. In a hurry, Tao Lord Yuyu raised his hands to the sky and formed a lunar seals. Boom! Yu Wei's scepter smashed onto Tao Lord Yuyu's lunar seal. The powerful force instantly suppressed Tao Lord Yuyu to the point that she could not move. I'm Tao Lord Yuyu from the Great Revelation Holy Land. Tao Lord Yuyu reported her name in shock. The giant skeleton held the scepter and looked coldly at Tao Lord Yuyu. Minister Li is just a civil official. Do you think you're invincible just because you defeated him in martial arts? The giant skeleton used its scepter to suppress Tao Lord Yuyu and said coldly. Tao Lord Young Moon could not move for a moment with her scepter and her expression was extremely terrible. Your Majesty, this is Tao Lord Yuyu, one of the 3 Tao Lords of the Dazhao Holy Land. The Dazhao Holy Land is the #1 sect in this world. Li Songhai reported. The world's #1 sect? It seems that a Tao Lord like him is nothing more than this. The giant skeleton said coldly. Your Majesty, this person cannot represent the Dazhao Holy Land. The Dazhao Holy Land is led by the sacred master, Jing Ming. Jing Ming is the #1 person in the world today. He has the sun and moon attendants and the 2 Tao Lords, sun and moon. Although they are called the 3 Tao Lords together with Jing Ming, the 2 of them are merely Jing Ming's servants. Jing Ming's strength is unfathomable and he is the #1 person in the world today. Li Songhai reported truthfully. Oh. The giant skeleton pondered for a moment. Chapter 752. I suggest that Your Majesty should focus on establishing his foundation since he has just entered this world, and should not incur the wrath of the Great Revelation Holy Ground immediately. This person should be released. Li Songhai said solemnly. Tao Lord Yuyu looked at Li Songhai in shock. He was the one who wanted to kill him earlier on. In the blink of an eye, Li Songhai was pleading for him? Approved. The gigantic skeleton said coldly. Boom. The gigantic skeleton retracted his scepter slowly. Instantly, the pressure on Tao Lord Yuyu was relieved as he looked at this pair of ruler and subject in shock. Great Revelation Holy Ground, I have yet to ask for your guidance. Tao Lord Yuyu took a deep breath and said solemnly. He could forget about the heaven-burying coffin. Now that he was released, Tao Lord Yuyu did not escape immediately. Instead, he asked politely in the name of the Great Revelation Holy Ground. Li Songhai said, This is the Emperor of the Great Nightmare Holy Ground, King Yu Gai. Great Nightmare Holy Ground? King Yu Gai? Tao Lord Yuyu looked at King Yu Gai with a complicated expression. He turned to look at the entrance that King Yu Gai came out from. Behind him, a large number of figures followed closely. The frontmost group of skeletal soldiers were riding on huge skeletal horses. The skeleton knights were clad in battle armor and walked out slowly. Following that, a group of venomous snakes followed the army out slowly. Pist, pist, pist. The venomous snakes slithered in all directions with extremely cold gazes. Following that, groups of zombies stepped onto the ground, causing a drought. The leading zombie looked at Dao Lord Yu coldly with a pale face and stood behind King Yugai respectfully. King Yugai was way too big. He was so big that even an army that entered was like an ant before him. Swoosh! A purple-robed man appeared beside Li Tsunghai. The man was extremely skinny and had a pale face. He looked feminine, but his eyes shone with an incomparably sinister divine glint. He glared at Dao Lord Yu, causing Dao Lord Yu to shudder. Cough, cough, cough. The purple-robed man coughed and grabbed a handkerchief. He covered his mouth while looking at Dao Lord Yu coldly. Supreme Snake Emperor. Li Tsunghai bowed to the purple-robed man. You're getting more and more cowardly? A holy land of the sealed world needs you to persuade His Majesty? The purple-robed man looked at Li Tsunghai with dissatisfaction. Li Tsunghai smiled bitterly and said, I have lived in this world for many years, Snake Emperor. I will not tarnish His Majesty's reputation for no reason. His Majesty still has important matters to attend to. He shouldn't make enemies of the world right now. Pumph. The Snake Emperor snorted coldly. Li Tsunghai smiled bitterly and didn't say anything else. National beast? Snake? Snakes can turn into dragons, so why didn't you guys evolve in the direction of dragons? Continue to cultivate in the serpentine form? Dao Lord Yu asked in surprise. Snake Sovereign looked at Dao Lord Yu and sneered, Dragon? Why should I transform into a dragon? Dao Lord Yu's expression froze. She took a deep breath and turned to look at King Yugai once more. Underworld King, I've offended you today. I won't disturb you any further. Dao Lord Yu flew into the sky. Yu. King Gai Yu suddenly opened his mouth. Dao Lord Single Moon turned to look at King Guai. Jingying is the #1 person in this realm? King Guai asked calmly. Dao Lord Yu looked at King Yugai in confusion. Go back and tell Jingying that I'll be heading to your Great Revelation Holy Land soon to see what the #1 person in the world is like. King Yugai said calmly. King Yugai was ambitious. Therefore, he had to have a rough understanding of this world. The #1 person in the world was the best touchstone. I'll definitely pass on King Yugai's words. Dao Lord Yu said coldly. As he spoke, he reached out and grabbed the broken moon wheel. Stepping into the distance, he shot out instantly. In the blink of an eye, Dao Lord Yu was nowhere to be seen. Chapter 753. The flying boat was far away from the battlefield where King Gai came out. Yan Chuan and his group naturally could not see the battle between King Gai and Dao Lord Yu. However, that did not stop Yan Chuan from guessing. Ghost Emperor? The celestial empire of the netherworld? He was in the world of the living in his previous life. Just like him, he was the emperor of a country. The Ghost Emperor must have his own methods to deal with Dao Lord Yu. Moreover, there were many experts in a country. Dao Lord Yu would not be able to gain any advantage. Your Majesty, according to the feng shui information left behind by my master, the entrance to the immortal world during this water ritual will expand to 10,000 feet. After 10 days, the entrance will shrink until it returns to normal. Feng Yinyang said solemnly. Oh, 20 days? He came prepared. 20 days is enough for his country to enter. Yan Chuan frowned. This world will repair itself. Therefore, the connection to the immortal world will only last for 20 days. Moreover, this is the only time. This time, almost half of the strongest experts in the southern divine continent and all the feng shui masters were used to succeed in the blood sacrifice. There will not be a second time unless the previous conditions are fulfilled. However, it is too difficult. Feng Yinyang said firmly. What about the road to the Yellow Springs? Yan Chuan asked. The road to the Yellow Springs has been opened and will not be closed again. The Ghost Emperor can enter the netherworld of our world as he wishes. However, Your Majesty, although the netherworld of our world is not as strong as the world of the living, there are still many experts. The Ghost Emperor will not succeed overnight. This time, the Ghost Emperor killed the sect leaders of the various sects and made an enemy of the entire southern divine continent. There will be endless chaos in the future. Feng Yinyang said firmly. Huguang, go to the next city and spread the news of the Ghost Emperor's birth and the blood sacrifice of the experts of the various sects. Yan Chuan looked at Huguang and said, Yes. Your Majesty, are you trying to stir up chaos in the southern divine continent? Feng Yinyang smiled. That's right. Why should we let the Ghost Emperor be too idle? Yan Chuan smiled. Your Majesty, Your Majesty. Feng Yinyang nodded. Yellow Springs Road. Seeing Dao Lord Yu leave, King Gai looked around, as though he was searching for Yan Chuan, Meng Hongying and the others. Little girl, you sure run fast. King of Gai said calmly. Since he could not find Meng Hongying, King of Gai did not continue his search. After all, Meng Hongying was nothing in his eyes. Minister Li, have you prepared the 9 Stars Auxiliary Government arrangement that I asked you to prepare? King Yu of Gai asked in a deep voice. Reporting to Your Majesty, the feng shui masters of this world are indeed formidable. This subject has found one of the 2 strongest feng shui masters in the world and has already set up a 9-star city, waiting for our valiant generals and civil officials to inherit. What a pity! Li Songhai said with a complicated expression. Pity what? Reporting to Your Majesty, in order to not attract too much attention, the defense is lacking. Among them, the ravenous wolf star was accidentally obtained by an outsider. 9 stars are missing, and now there are only 8 stars left. Please punish me, Your Majesty. Li Songhai sighed. Greedy wolf star? But it is not easy to control. I have searched among the officials for a long time, but I could not find the most suitable one. Who inherited it? King Yu of Gai asked curiously. It is a wolf child. He grew up in a pack of wolves. He is unusually ferocious, but his heart is clear. Li Songhai said. Wolf child? I see. Minister Li, you have done nothing wrong. This is a great merit. From today onwards, I will confer you the title of Duke Stabilizing, and you will enjoy middle-level providence, King Yu of Gai said solemnly. Thank you, Your Majesty, Li Songhai said excitedly. Chapter 754. Since the ravenous wolf star is gone, the other 8 stars must not be lost. I have already selected the generals and ministers. Bring them along and take over the 8 stars as soon as possible. King Gaio said solemnly. Yes. Li Songhai bowed. On the flying boat, Yan Chuan could no longer see King Gaio's battlefield. He turned to look at Meng Hongying. Meng Hongying was still dressed in a sexy manner. She was holding a long whip and looked extremely seductive. Meng Hongying, Li Songhai has already chased away the strongest sections. I didn't expect you to stay. Are you representing the Archaean sects? Yan Chuan looked at Meng Hongying. Meng Hongying looked at Yan Chuan and said coldly, Yan Chuan, although you saved me, I won't be grateful to you. I don't want you to be grateful. I just want to ask you a question. Yan Chuan shook his head. Is Zizi okay? Yan Chuan took a deep breath and asked. Meng Hongying looked at Yan Chuan with a complicated expression. After a moment of silence, she said, You still remember her. You have not let her down. Don't worry, Zizi is fine now. She is living well in the Archaean sect. It's just that she often stares blankly at a comb. Yan Chuan's expression changed. Yan Chuan suddenly remembered. Could it be the comb that he had used to comb Zizi's hair twice in Carefree City? Because he had combed Zizi's hair, he had incurred the wrath of heaven. Fortunately, Miao and Tian Dingyo had saved him. Zizi had been carrying it around? Yan Chuan, I'm warning you. Meng Hongying's face darkened. Yan Chuan looked at Meng Hongying. If you dare to hurt Zizi, I, Meng Hongying, will not forgive you. Meng Hongying said ferociously. Yan Chuan looked at Meng Hongying and smiled. Zizi is my wife. This is between us. You don't have to worry about it. You. Meng Hongying glared at him. The divine sect's sacred ground is in the central divine continent, right? Since we're passing by, I'll go with you to see Zizi. Yan Chuan said solemnly. Meng Hongying finally calmed down. The world was too big, and flying was an extremely long process. In fact, it would take 1 or 2 years to fly out of the southern divine continents. Along the way to the north, everyone found a place to cultivate in seclusion. 2 years later, in the small room where Meng Hongying was, Meng Hongying slowly woke up from her cultivation. He gently closed the formation and prepared to leave the warehouse for some fresh air. Hong! A loud noise suddenly came from the outside world. Meng Hongying's expression changed as she quickly rushed to the deck. He held onto the railing and looked at the place where the loud noise came from. In the distance, a volcano erupted. The huge volcano shot up into the sky, and flames soared into the sky. The clouds in the sky were dyed red, and a rain of fire fell in all directions. Below, countless creatures were instantly affected. The beasts ran and the birds fled. Chaos ensued. Meng Hongying frowned. She quickly walked around the deck and looked around. No, I've been here before. This is the solitary volcano zone, a place filled with volcanoes. It's not the way to the divine sect's sacred ground. Meng Hongying raised her eyebrows. At that moment, Huo Guang happened to be patrolling. Huo Guang, this is not the way to the divine sect's sacred ground. What is Yan Chuan trying to do? Meng Hongying said in a low voice. Huo Guang was still polite to Meng Hongying. Chapter 755. Huo Guang smiled. Don't worry, Taoist Meng. The general route is still to the Archaean sect's sacred ground. Since the Dugu volcano region is not far away, we won't stay here for long. His Majesty has a nephew who lives here. His Majesty will continue after visiting him. Yan Chuan? Nephew? Meng Hongying asked with a strange expression. Meng Hongying was relieved after a short delay. However, the fact that Yan Chuan's nephew lived here made Meng Hongying dumbfounded. Yan Chuan has a nephew? He used to be the crown prince of the Yan state, Yan Wudi. He followed the Dugu Sword Emperor and cultivated under the Dugu clan. The Dugu clan is close to this place. His Majesty wanted to visit him when he passed by. Huo Guang smiled. Meng Hongying nodded. She then looked curiously at the main palace where Yan Chuan lived. Meng Hongying was surprised. Around the main hall Yan Chuan was in, there was a thin layer of frost forming around him. Wisps of frigid air could be felt coming from the main hall where Yan Chuan was. Huo Guang also showed a hint of curiosity. In the main hall, Yan Chuan was sitting cross-legged as he adjusted his cultivation level. Suddenly, his heaven's meridian shook. The blue thundercloud formed by the heaven-devouring Tao scripture in his meridians started shaking. As the blue thundercloud shook, it formed a huge whirlpool and absorbed the heat from all directions. The blue sky thundercloud sucked in all the heat in the hall. Suddenly, a layer of frost fell in the hall. Then, the frost on the floor of the main palace even spread outside the main palace. Heaven-devouring Tao scripture? I'm finally going to break through? Yan Chuan was overjoyed. He opened his eyes. At this moment, Yan Chuan felt like he was covered in frost and was about to freeze. It's so cold. Heaven-devouring Tao scripture? I'm just about to advance to the second stage, and I can't stand the cold anymore? What kind of cultivation technique is this? Yan Chuan said in shock. Boom! Yan Chuan pushed open the door of the main hall. He quickly rushed out. When he rushed out, he saw Meng Hongying and Huo Guang. The two of them also looked at Yan Chuan in astonishment. Yan Chuan's entire body was covered in frost and snow. His entire body seemed to have been frozen into an ice cube. Yan Chuan? What martial arts are you practicing? Ice block cultivation technique? Turn yourself into an ice cube? Meng Hongying laughed. Yan Chuan had no time to bicker with Meng Hongying. At this moment, Yan Chuan felt his body getting colder and colder. Damn it, what kind of skill is this? Suddenly, Yan Chuan saw a volcano erupting in the distance. His eyes lit up. Huo Guang, set up camp nearby. Wait for my return. Yan Chuan ordered. Huo Guang replied. Yan Chuan quickly flew towards the erupting volcano. During the flight, Yan Chuan became colder and colder. The surrounding air became even colder, and frost and snow fell rapidly. Wherever Yan Chuan passed, there would be snow and hail. As for Yan Chuan himself, it was just as Meng Hongying said. A human-shaped ice layer formed around him, and the ice layer became thicker and thicker. It was as if Yan Chuan was sealed in an iceberg. "It's so cold. Are you trying to kill me?" Yan Chuan said as his teeth chattered. Plop. Yan Chuan jumped into the volcano. The lava from the volcano suddenly froze the moment it rushed out of the crater. Crack, 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 crack. At the crater of the volcano, the lava solidified like a blooming flower. The huge erupting volcano froze in an instant. Countless fleeing creatures looked up at the sky in confusion. On the flying boat, Meng Hongying was also petrified. "It's really an ice block cultivation technique," Meng Hongying said after holding back for a long time. Chapter 756. Plop. Wrapped in layers of ice, Yan Chuan jumped into the lava. The ice melted and Yan Chuan was freed from the shackles of the solid ice. However, what left Yan Chuan speechless was that just as the ice melted, the surrounding magma solidified. Furthermore, it was frozen in an instant. Blue sky thundercloud? Yan Chuan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. His figure leaped, heading deeper into the magma layer. The blue sky thundercloud crazily absorbed the heat. Wherever it passed, the magma turned into rock. 100 feet, 100 feet, 200 feet. Yan Chuan had a terrifying thought in his heart. If he kept going down until he reached the bottom of the volcano and everything solidified into rocks, how was he going to get out? He was surrounded by rocks. It was as if a mountain was pressing down on him. As he ventured deeper, the mountain grew taller and taller. If they couldn't get out in the end, it would be over. But who asked Qing Tian Lei Yun to be so abnormal? If you don't want to be frozen to death, keep going. The erupting volcano had now become an extinct volcano. Yan Chuan didn't know how deep they were underground. Just as he was feeling conflicted, he suddenly realized that things weren't as bad as he thought. The bottom of the volcano was like a gigantic communication device. Lava was everywhere, and the bottom of the volcano was excessively spacious, as if it was connected to more than one volcano. Fortunately, we've come to the Dugu volcano region this time. This is the place with the most volcanoes in the world. Yan Chuan sighed. Other Divinity Realm cultivators would definitely hold up an air wall or use magic treasures to barely hold on at the bottom of the volcano. However, Yan Chuan directly stuck his body against the magma. Who asked Yan Chuan to be cold? In the depths of the volcano, Yan Chuan looked at the magma around him in a daze. At that moment, Yan Chuan's clothes were burned away. He did not bring the Jade Emperor's sword and God sword down. Yan Chuan was sitting naked in the depths of the underground volcano. Inhale! Inhale! The rolling heat was absorbed by Yan Chuan. After an unknown period of time, Yan Chuan's body suddenly rumbled. Yan Chuan's body trembled, but he was still absorbing the heat. Yan Chuan looked at the endless lava around him and smiled bitterly. My cultivation has already broken through to the 3rd level of the deity realm. Why haven't I finished absorbing the clear sky thundercloud? Yan Chuan said with a bitter smile. At this moment, red light appeared in the thunderclouds in the Shenting's aperture. The quantitative change had finally reached a qualitative change. The cyan thunderclouds gradually turned from cyan to red, becoming redder and redder. In the end, it completely turned fiery red. But before Yan Chuan could feel it, the red color suddenly receded, and then it turned green again. However, at this moment, the green clouds were gradually becoming viscous. Then, it turned into a liquid state. The 2nd level of the heaven-devouring Dao scripture? Yan Chuan felt strange as he sensed the liquid thunder clouds. Thunder, come. Boom. A bolt of heavenly thunder appeared out of nowhere. What's the difference? Yan Chuan looked curiously at the heavenly thunder that did not become stronger. No, it changed. Yan Chuan's pupils shrank. This was deep underground. How could the heavenly thunder appear? In the past, the heavenly thunder would descend from the sky, but now, it seemed to have crossed the space barrier and appeared out of nowhere. It did not need to descend from the sky. It would appear as long as one wanted it. I became the tribulation cloud. It can descend at any time? Yen Chuan frowned and pondered. In the past, it was equivalent to using the clear sky thunder cloud to ask the heavens for permission to descend the heavenly thunder. Now, it could descend the heavenly thunder by itself. Chapter 757. Although the power didn't increase, the meaning was different. In the past, it was God's shepherd. Now, he was tribulation? Heaven-devouring Tao scripture? This is only the second level. What is the origin of this technique? Yen Chuan was at a loss. The stronger the technique, the better. However, Yen Chuan felt that this technique was no longer a matter of strength. It was strange. There was such a technique in the world? After absorbing the heat for a while, Yen Chuan felt that he could stop absorbing, so he was ready to go back. He found the crater of the volcano that he had entered before. The rocks that had been frozen were once again melted by the countless flames underground. Following the lava, Yen Chuan flew towards the sky. As he flew over the lava layer. Just as he was about to fly out of the lava crater, Yen Chuan paused. Go out? He couldn't go out. Looking at his body, his clothes had been burned clean. In the outside world, Huoguang, Feng Yinyang, and a group of soldiers must be guarding. If he rushed out naked, what dignity of an emperor would he have in the future? It wasn't that Yen Chuan was too particular, but in his current position, he had to consider carefully. Go into the depths of the lava and find another crater? But how could it be easy to find another crater in the depths of the earth? In the vast sea of fire, who knew where the exit was? Just as Yen Chuan was hesitating, the stone wall beside him suddenly emitted waves of water vapor. TSK, TSK, TSK. The water vapor rose, condensed in the air, and evaporated when it fell. Yen Chuan went forward and touched it doubtfully. Underground river water? Yen Chuan's face lit up with joy. Bang! With a palm, Yen Chuan shattered the rock, and a large amount of underground river water gushed out. Bang! The river water evaporated, turning into endless water vapor that soared into the sky. As for Yen Chuan, he quickly entered the cave and followed the underground river to find another exit. Because it was close to the volcano, the water in the underground river was very hot. However, it was nothing to Yen Chuan. Sensing the flow of the water, Yen Chuan soon sensed an exit. Following the flow of water, Yen Chuan quickly rushed over. After circling around for a while, it soared into the sky. Near the mouth of the volcano, Huoguang, Feng Yinyang, and the others waited patiently. Meng Honging looked at the volcano and asked the 4 servants behind her, "How long has Yen Chuan been in the volcano?" Reporting to Miss, "It's been a month." "A month? Why haven't they come out yet?" "Don't get burned to death. Go and take a look. Inform me when there's news about Yen Chuan," Meng Honging said calmly. After sending away the 4 servants, Meng Honging flew to a nearby valley. He took out some magic treasures and quickly set up a formation around the valley. The fog covered the valley in the blink of an eye, isolating it from the outside world. "Haha, I haven't enjoyed a hot spring in a long time. I didn't expect there to be one here. Since that bastard Yen Chuan hasn't come back, I'll reward myself." Meng Honging laughed and took off her clothes. Meng Honging jumped into the huge hot spring and enjoyed it. The formation isolated it from the outside world. No one could enter. Meng Honging enjoyed the hot spring alone. She was drowsy in the hot spring. After soaking for more than an hour, Meng Honging stretched her body in enjoyment. Ice block skill. Yen Chuan is really strange. The last time I saw him, he was only in the essence state. Now he's already in the immortal state? Establishing the Great Jin dynasty? Destroying the Great Winged Heaven School? How strange. And those 2 swords. It's amazing. Someone like him is good enough for ZZ. Meng Honging thought. Chapter 758. ZZ already has a husband. What about me? Sigh, I hope I won't follow in my mother's footsteps. Oh my God, where is my husband? Meng Honging mocked herself. Rumble. Just as Meng Honging finished her sentence, the center of the hot spring started to rumble. Bang. The water in the center of the hot spring exploded. Meng Hongying's expression changed and she quickly flew away. Phew, I'm finally out. Yan Chuan's voice could be heard from the exploding hot spring water. Yan Chuan? Meng Hongying was dumbfounded. She had set up a formation outside to prevent anyone from entering. This? The exploding water suddenly fell back down. Yan Chuan immediately saw his surroundings. Yan Chuan immediately saw Meng Hongying. She was naked. Her snow-white skin and pink seduction? The two of them stared at each other. Yan Chuan was the first to react. He immediately came to his senses. Why is Meng Hongying here? Why is she not wearing any clothes? Yan Chuan did not have time to think. He reached out and a piece of clothing on the shore covered himself. It was Meng Hongying's clothing. Meng Hongying suddenly saw the thing in front of her move and use her clothing to cover his body. Ah! Meng Hongying immediately screamed. Miss Meng, I didn't do anything to you. You don't have to scream so miserably, Yan Chuan said with a wry smile. Meng Hongying was instantly enraged. Look again, I'll gouge out your eyeballs. Meng Hongying shouted anxiously. Yan Chuan smiled embarrassedly. Meng Hongying brought her space magical equipment and found a set of clothing for Yan Chuan. The two of them quickly put it on. After putting it on, Meng Hongying looked at Yan Chuan again. Her face turned red, then black, and then white. The two of them remained silent for a while. The situation was extremely awkward. In the end, it was Yan Chuan who spoke first. Actually, you didn't lose out. He didn't suffer any losses? Both of them were naked, and both of them had seen each other's naked body. Indeed, there was no difference between the two of them. However, could this matter be settled just like that? Bastard, Yan Chuan, I'm going to kill you, Meng Hongying was going crazy. You can't beat me. Yan Chuan also inexplicably added a sentence. Meng Hongying cried out in grief and indignation. Yan Chuan felt a little guilty when he saw Meng Hongying's grief and indignation, but it only lasted for a moment. Bastard Yan Chuan, I'll dig out your eyeballs one day. Go find ZZ yourself. Meng Hongying said angrily. Boom. Meng Hongying soared into the sky, grabbed the array formation artifact and flew away. Servants, let's go. Meng Hongying shouted at her four subordinates. Oh yes, miss. The four servants were baffled. Yan Chuan was speechless as he watched Meng Hongying leave. Coincidentally, the underground water was connected to this hot spring. It was not a coincidence, but an inevitable result. There was only one hot spring at the mouth of the volcano. The underground water must have gushed out from here. How could Yan Chuan expect Meng Hongying to take a bath at this time? While everyone was confused, Yan Chuan flew back to the flying boat and changed into a new set of clothes. On the other hand, the four servants were flying behind Meng Hongying. Meng Hongying kept muttering to herself, Bastard, bastard. Miss, who made you angry? One of them asked curiously. None of your business. Meng Hongying turned around and shouted. That person was speechless. The four servants lowered their heads silently and kept quiet. Chapter 759. Meng Hongying left. Yan Chuan summoned Huoguang and Feng Yimyang and boarded the airship again. Although they were close to the Dugu family, there was still some distance. Yan Chuan stood on the deck of the airship as it flew. He looked around and saw many tall mountains. However, these mountains had some special features. Many of them had many words carved on them. The words looked like they were carved by a sword cultivator. The best sword cultivator in the world? How, what a boast! Huoguang said as he looked at the sword carvings on the mountain. Yan Chuan shook his head and said, Aristocratic families. Huoguang, don't underestimate aristocratic families. Although aristocratic families can't be compared to countries and sects, any aristocratic family that can take root in the cultivation world is not simple. There is a rumor in the world that aristocratic families are made of iron and holy lands with flowing water. Do you know what it means to be an aristocratic family made of iron and a celestial empire made of water? Huoguang's expression changed as he nodded. Yan Chuan raised his eyebrows. The airship suddenly stopped. Everyone looked at Yan Chuan in confusion, but Yan Chuan was looking at a mountain in the distance. There was a cave on the mountain. Unfortunately, the cave was blocked. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't have noticed it. Yan Chuan stared at the cave. Boom. The cave was also very cooperative and was instantly pushed open from the inside. While everyone was surprised, a figure slowly walked out of the cave. It was a short-haired woman in a tight robe. It's her? Feng Yinyang said in surprise. Empress? Yan Chuan called out in a deep voice. It was Empress. She was freed from the ice by Yan Chuan. Later, she helped Mo Yushi obtain the inheritance of the Dark Phoenix at the ruins of the Undying Sanctum. She also shone with Yan Chuan at the Heaven's Gift Conference. Yan Chuan won the investiture of the gods, and Empress won the Tian Su. In the distance, the emperor stepped onto the flying boat. With the bronze saber on his back, he walked over and looked at Yan Chuan curiously. Yan Chuan? Why you here? The emperor asked curiously. That's exactly what I wanted to ask you. Yan Chuan said curiously. The emperor's expression changed. I understand now. You're here to look for someone from the Yan family? Yan Chuan's eyes lit up as he said, just now, I also realized that I was being sensed by you, so I stopped. It seems that your bloodline is very sensitive to my Yan clan's bloodline. Are you going to the Dugu family? The emperor curiously asked. Yes, the Dugu family. My nephew, Yan Wudi, is inside. Yan Chuan nodded. All right, I'll go with you. The emperor nodded. Yan Chuan invited the emperor into the main hall. Why you here? Yan Chuan asked curiously. I came here after the last Heavenly Bestowment Conference. The emperor took a deep breath. It's been more than 20 years? Yan Chuan was surprised. The emperor nodded. I came to find Dugabu Tian to ask about my father's death, but Dugabu Tian didn't come out of seclusion, so I kept challenging the disciples of the Dugu clan to sharpen my saber skills. Said the emperor. Dugu Badian? He's from the same era as your father? Yan Chuan frowned. The Dugu family is also from the outside world, which is the immortal realm you speak of. However, they entered this realm earlier than us. Dugu Badian is the head of the Dugur family. The emperor explained. Dugu Badian? Is he very strong? Yan Chuan asked. I'm not sure, but according to the rumors, he should be very, very strong. In the immortal realm, there is actually the Dugu family. They are a family that cultivates the sword. The descendants of this family seem to be born with the sword. The way of the sword is very powerful in the immortal realm. They are very famous. The emperor recalled. Chapter 760. Yan Chuan did not interrupt and waited for the emperor to continue his recollection. Dugu Badian? This is the name of the head of the Dugu family. However, at some point in time, a branch family appeared in the Dugu family, the head of the branch family. Dugupadian. The branch family led by Dugupadian became stronger and stronger. In fact, it completely suppressed Dugubutian's branch. As a result, it was difficult for outsiders to distinguish who was the main family and who was the branch family. Dugubadian also recognized Duguposhan's position. Dugubutian's branch was weak and Duguposhan's branch was strong. At some point in time, Dugubadian disappeared from the immortal world. It wasn't until my father and I entered this world together that we found out that Dugubadian had been hiding here. The emperor took a deep breath and said, My undying holy land had a good relationship with the Dugu family back then. My father has fallen. I want to ask Dugubadian if he knows what happened back then. The emperor sighed. Dugubadian? Dugupadian? Yan Chuan chewed on the two conflicting names. Dugu family, apart from the head of the family, is generally divided into 9 branches. Whether it is Dugupadian or Dugubadian, their family is like this. One head leads 9 branches. They are called the 9 Swords branch. The emperor explained. You just said that Dugupadian rose from the branch family of the Dugu family. Branch family? Is it one of the original 9 Swords branch? Yan Chuan asked curiously. No, I don't know the specific situation back then. I only know that when the branch family was first separated, it was also established in the form of the 9 Swords branch. The first generation Dugubadian sent it to guard a place. As time passed, the geniuses of the branch family gushed out, causing the main family and branch family's positions to reverse. The emperor said, Yen Chuan nodded. The first generation Dugubuddian? What about the current Dugubuddian? Yen Chuan asked curiously. This Dugubuddian? I've only heard that this generation's Dugubuddian is also a peerless genius. When he was at the upper void realm, he once killed an immortal with his sword. When he reached the immortal realm, he became even more ferocious. Many people said that this Dugubuddian could change the situation of the Dugu family and bring the main family back to glory and suppress the branch family. However, when Dugubutian's name was at its peak, he disappeared. The emperor frowned. He came to this world? Yen Chuan frowned. Yes. The emperor nodded. So you're saying that Dugubuddian is an immortal? Yen Chuan's expression changed. He's an immortal, but he must have sealed his cultivation. Just like my father back then, this realm doesn't allow immortals to descend unless they seal themselves. Or reincarnate. Otherwise, the heavens will send down endless calamities. The emperor explained. Yen Chuan nodded. You've seen my nephew? Yen Chuan asked curiously. Yes, I've seen him. He has an innate sword bone and has already unsealed it. He's now following the Dugu Sword Emperor, a disciple of the Three Swords range. The emperor nodded. Has it been unsealed? Yen Chuan nodded in satisfaction. However, his senses aren't as good as yours. You can sense my senses, but your nephew can't. The emperor said in a low voice. He's still young. Of course he can't. Yen Chuan smiled. The emperor looked at Yen Chuan strangely. It seems that Yen Chuan and Yen Wudi are about the same age, right? The two chatted for a while. Your Majesty, we're here. Huo Guang's voice suddenly came from outside the hall. Yen Chuan and the emperor stepped out of the main hall. They stood on the deck and looked at the so-called Dugu family. From afar, a huge sword was inserted into the ground. Half of the sword's body was exposed. On the sword's body, 8 large words appeared. Dugu family. Forbidden land. Dugu family? Forbidden land? Yen Chuan was surprised. The emperor said, these words aren't exaggerated. This is indeed a forbidden land. Do you know that Dugubuddian was the most powerful person in the world 20,000 years ago? 20,000 years ago? Yen Chuan was surprised. 20,000 years ago, when Dugubuddian first entered this world. At that time, after the Dugu family was established, 2 holy lands were fighting. This place happened to be in the middle. The 2 holy lands agreed to fight here. Just as the Dugu family was about to be destroyed, Dugubuddian made his first move. He killed all the Dao lords of the 2 holy lands with his sword alone. The world was shocked. Since then, no one dared to offend him. Dugubuddian was also very low-key. He was so low-key that he had such a large territory 20,000 years ago. Even after 20,000 years, he still had such a large territory. He didn't have any ambition to expand. It was as if he wanted to live in seclusion here. Dugubuddian rarely made a move and spent most of his time in seclusion. Therefore, no one dared to provoke him. The Dugu family also seemed to be very low-key. The emperor explained. It's not just low-key. It's been 20,000 years? What is Dugubuddian doing in seclusion? Yen Chuan looked at the sword-shaped tablet in front of him strangely. Suddenly, a man with a purple sword on his back charged into the sky and appeared in front of the flying boat. "Who are you?" The man with the sword on his back asked. "Dugu Feng, don't you recognize me?" The emperor said indifferently. "You again, emperor? Which palace are you challenging this time?" Dugu Feng's face sank. "I'm not here to challenge you this time. I'm here to accompany a friend of mine to look for someone." The emperor said indifferently. "Look for someone?" Dugu Feng was surprised. Yen Chuan stepped forward and said, "My nephew, Yen Wudi, is in the Dugu family, right? I want to meet him in a duel. Please inform him." "Yen Wudi? Your nephew?" Dugu Feng looked at Yen Chuan in surprise. In the end, Dugu Feng shook his head and said, "My Dugu family has its own rules. Once you enter the house, you are isolated from the outside world. I won't inform him for you. Wait outside. When Yen Wudi comes out, you can meet him." "Is this how your Dugu family treats its guests?" Huo Guang shouted angrily. This is my Duger family's rule. Dugu Feng said coldly. Huguang was about to shout again when Yan Chuan stopped Huguang. He turned to look at the emperor. The emperor nodded and said, the Dugu family indeed has this rule. No matter who comes, it is useless. However, there are exceptions. Dugu Feng and the others are the family guards. As long as you defeat these guards, you will be qualified to have them deliver a message for you. As long as you get permission, you can enter. What a strange rule. Yan Chuan said with a smile. I suggest you let the others stay outside. I will go in with you, the emperor said. Yan Chuan's expression changed. He suddenly thought of something and nodded. Huguang, station nearby. Wait for orders. Yan Chuan ordered. Yes. Huguang also wanted to enter, but he still obeyed the order. Chapter 761. The Dugu family's entrance. 5 Dugu family disciples with swords on their backs stood in front of the entrance. Dugu Feng stood in front of them. On the other side, only the emperor, Yan Chuan, Huguang, and the others were there. Yan Chuan had arranged for them to set up camp at the place where the volcano had erupted earlier. Do I still need it? The emperor asked. You've broken through many times, so you don't need it anymore. This one is called Yan Chuan? As long as you can defeat me, I'll pass the message on your behalf. Also, the Yen Wudi you mentioned has changed his name to Invincible Dugu. Dugu Feng said solemnly. Invincible Dugu? Yan Chuan frowned. Yes, the Dugu Sword Emperor taught him the Dugu family's secret technique, which was not tolerated by the other bloodlines. In the end, the Dugu Sword Emperor took Yen Wudi as his foster son. Only then did the family acknowledge him. Dugu Feng said solemnly. Yan Chuan nodded. Everything was still unclear. He had to wait until he saw Yen Wudi to ask him personally. Dugu Feng, 6th stage divine realm. Dugu Feng said solemnly. Yan Chuan, 3rd stage divine realm. Yan Chuan said solemnly. I'm going to start. Dugu Feng said solemnly. Please. Yan Chuan nodded. Dugu Feng raised his right foot and stomped on the ground with the purple longsword in his hand. The ground shook, and thousands of sword chi rushed out from the ground, heading straight for Yan Chuan. Boom! Yan Chuan's face darkened, and he swung the emperor's sword. He quickly slashed apart the sword chi. Dugu Feng took advantage of this gap and stabbed his sword. A sword energy rushed toward Yan Chuan. Just as the sword energy was about to hit Yan Chuan, ding! Yan Chuan turned his long sword, and the tip of the sword collided with the tip of the sword. Buzz! The sword chi in the surroundings dispersed with a loud bang. Good swordsmanship. Dugu Feng sighed. The sword in his hand did not stop. As he raised it and swung it, thousands of sword chi suddenly appeared in the surroundings, slashing towards Yan Chuan once more. The Dugu family? A mere guard actually has such exquisite swordsmanship? Yan Chuan exclaimed in admiration. As he took a step forward, the god sword stabbed out once more. Instantly, thousands of white god sword chi appeared in the surroundings. Boom! The two swords clashed once again. The sword chi cleverly clashed with the sword chi. The control of the two swords had reached a fine level. Cling, 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 cling. Their swords moved faster and faster, and their figures blurred in the blink of an eye. The 5 guards of the Dugu family looked at the sky in surprise. They didn't expect Yan Chuan to have such a profound swordsmanship. 21st Blade. Shing! With a sword cry, the battle came to an abrupt end. In the sky, Yan Chuan's clothes were cut by Dugu Feng. However, Yan Chuan's long sword stopped at Dugu Feng's throat. It was obvious who was superior. Thank you for letting me win. Yan Chuan withdrew his sword. My skills are inferior. Brother Yan's swordsmanship. Dugu Feng praised. Yan Chuan smiled and landed on the side of the emperor. The emperor looked at Yan Chuan in surprise. Looking at the hole in Yan Chuan's clothes, he asked doubtfully, "Were you testing the Dugu family's swordsmanship?" Yan Chuan smiled bitterly and said, "You saw through it." Yan Chuan did not use his full strength. He was just testing his sword. Swords have no eyes. If you don't use your full strength, you will only put yourself in danger. The emperor said indifferently, "Thank you for your advice." Yan Chuan nodded. Yan Chuan had his own plans. He didn't want to get entangled in this matter. However, the test just now had allowed Yan Chuan to feel the profoundness of the Dugu family's swordsmanship. Please wait for a moment. I will go to the Three Swords Palace to inform them. If they permit, I will lead the two of you inside, Dugu Feng said. Chapter 762. Yan Chuan nodded. Just as Dugu Feng was about to turn around and pass the message, a voice suddenly sounded. Pass the message? Pass the message to who? Everyone looked over and saw a man in green walking out with a green sword on his back. Greetings, martial uncle, the 6 guards shouted at the same time. The emperor explained to Yan Chuan, this person is 9 Sword Hall's elder, Dugu Tinya. Yan Chuan nodded. Oh, I was wondering who it was. So it's the emperor. Why are you challenging another hall? My Dugu family isn't your sparring partner. Sabers and swords have no eyes. Last time, you were lucky to run into my 9 Sword Hall's palace master. That's why I let you off. You won't have that luck this time. A loser is qualified to comment on my battle? Last time, I didn't lose, but it was a draw. Your hall master should recuperate for at least a year. The emperor said coldly. My hall master has broken through again. If you come again, it will be your death date. Dugu Tinya said coldly. The emperor ignored him. Martial uncle, this time, it's this Yan Chuan who informed the 3 Sword Hall to find Dugu Wudi. Dugu Feng immediately explained. Yan Chuan? Yan Wudi? Who are you to Yan Wudi? Dugu Tinya suddenly looked at Yan Chuan. What do you think? Yan Chuan didn't have a good impression of Dugu Tinya. Both surnamed Yan, then Yan Wudi is a member of your Yan family? Let me tell you, Yan Wudi is not my Dugu family's younger brother. Don't even think about touching my Dugu family's sword technique. I advise you to take Yan Wudi and get out of my Dugu family. Otherwise, no one will care when you die. Dugu Tinya said coldly. Yan Chuan copied the emperor and turned around, ignoring Dugu Tinya. He didn't even bother to reply. Dugu Tinya was furious. On the other side, Dugu Feng also entered the Dugu family. Not long after, 2 people followed Dugu Feng out. Yan Wudi and the Dugu Sword Emperor. Both of them carried swords on their backs, especially Yan Wudi. From afar, he looked like an unsheathed sword. The Dugu Sword Emperor stepped forward and said with a smile, fellow Taoist Yan, I didn't know you were coming. Please excuse me for not coming out to greet you. Imperial uncle. Yan Wudi called out with a joyful expression as he followed behind. Dugu Sword Emperor, don't just bring anyone home. Dugu Tinya said solemnly. The Dugu Sword Emperor coldly glanced at Dugu Tinya. The matters of my 3 Swords Hall are none of your business. The Dugu Sword Emperor said coldly. Please, let's talk inside. The Dugu Sword Emperor said with a smile. When the Dugu Sword Emperor was obsessed with killing the poisoner, it was Yan Chuan who helped the Dugu Sword Emperor tie the knot in his heart. Therefore, the Dugu Sword Emperor was still very polite to Yan Chuan. Yan Chuan nodded and the 4 of them stepped into the Dugu family. At the entrance, Dugu Tinya narrowed his eyes and looked at the backs of the 4 with resentment. The Dugu family was shrouded in thick fog. Therefore, it was impossible to see clearly from the outside. After walking for a short while, they arrived at a large hall. 3 Swords Hall. Yan Chuan said in surprise. I'm the hall master of the 3 Swords Hall. I'm in charge of the 3 Swords range. The Dugu Sword Emperor said with a smile. I heard that the Dugu family has 9 ranges. I didn't expect you to be in charge of one. Sorry for the disrespect. Yan Chuan said with a smile. Fellow Taoist Yan is too polite. Actually, I'm not afraid of losing face. The 3 Swords range only has the 2 of us. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been criticized by the other ranges when I taught them the sword techniques of the Invincible family. They were worried that I would teach the 3 Swords range to outsiders in the future. The Dugu Sword Emperor said with a bitter smile. Chapter 763. Oh. Yan Chuan was surprised. Just the 2 of them? Sigh, it's because of the decline of my lineage that I had no choice but to return home. Otherwise, Wudi's mistress wouldn't have. The Dugu Sword Emperor said bitterly. Yen Wudi saw that the Dugu Sword Emperor was immersed in sorrow again and immediately changed the topic. Uncle, why are you here? I happened to pass by and came to see you. You can call me Uncle Chuan from now on. Yen Chuan said with a smile. You don't want to call me uncle anymore? Yen Wudi's expression changed. Uncle Chuan, have you taken over the Yen state? Yen Wudi asked seriously. That's right. I've established a dynasty in the east, the Great Zhen Dynasty. Yen Chuan nodded. Then, Yen Chuan told him everything that had happened in the past few years. After hearing everything, Yen Wudi smiled bitterly. I thought I had made a big breakthrough in the past few years, but compared to Uncle Chuan, I'm still far behind. Great Zhen Dynasty? Destroyed the Great Winged Heaven School? The Dugu Sword Emperor's eyes flashed with admiration. All right, Brother Yen, there's something I need you to do for Wudi. The Dugu Sword Emperor suddenly said with a serious expression. I promised you that I would teach Wudi everything I know. Wudi didn't disappoint me. His talent in swordsmanship is 100 times better than mine. However, this is the Dugu family after all. If others knew about it, they would stop us many times. Therefore, we announced to the public that Wudi is my adopted son to stop them from talking. However, Wudi has always been concerned about it and has to report it to his parents. The Dugu Sword Emperor said with a smile. Yen Chuan looked at Yen Wudi. Yen Wudi was a little embarrassed. I thought it was nothing. Wudi, the Dugu Sword Emperor has treated you with sincerity and is worthy of being your adoptive father. Let me make the decision. Today, we will settle your status. Yen Chuan said with a smile. Uncle Chuan? Yen Wudi was still a little upset. What? I don't have the qualifications to make decisions for you? Yen Chuan said with a solemn expression. No, it's just. Yen Wudi was a little embarrassed. The Dugu Sword Emperor took you in as his godson, and he won't taint you. He's just your godfather, not your father. Remember your bloodline, remember your Yen clan bloodline. Yen Chuan smiled. No, your nephew wouldn't dare. For master to acknowledge me as his son is an unparalleled blessing. Yen Wudi immediately corrected himself. Haha, good. The Dugu Sword Emperor laughed. Under Yen Chuan's guidance, Yen Wudi bowed 9 times to the Dugu Sword Emperor and offered him tea. They were officially father and son. Yen Chuan could see that after officially accepting him as his son, the Dugu Sword Emperor looked at Yen Wudi with even more affection. That day, Yen Chuan and the Emperor were arranged to stay. Yen Chuan and Yen Wudi also had a private conversation. Uncle Chuan, do you think I should call myself Yen Wudi or Dugu Wudi in the future? Yen Wudi was a little distressed. Is that important? You just need to remember who you are. That's enough. A name is just a name. More importantly, you are now cultivating in an aristocratic family, not a sect. Aristocratic families are stricter than sects, and they value inheritance more. Yen Chuan said solemnly. Oh, Dugu family? You are born with a sword bone. This is definitely rare in the Dugu family. Excessive talent will definitely arouse the jealousy of others. Your master can protect you once or twice, but can he protect you forever? Now that you have acknowledged him as your godfather, it will be of great help to your future cultivation. Dugu family, cultivate well, and when you have achieved great success in the way of the sword, come back and help your Uncle Chuan. Yen Chuan smiled. Yes, your nephew will study hard and not let Uncle Chuan down. Yen Wudi's expression also brightened. Chapter 764. Yes, your nephew will study diligently and not disappoint Uncle Chuan's expectations. Yen Wudi's expression also brightened. How are the books I asked you to read? Yen Chuan asked. Uncle Chuan, rest assured. Your nephew has not been blindly practicing the sword all these years. I have been studying the military books that Uncle Chuan gave me day and night. Later on, in some of the mortal countries nearby, I manipulated the war between the countries. It was really wonderful. Books are the essence of wisdom. In these years, when I have free time, I have also looked for books of wisdom in the mortal world. In addition to military books, There are also books of law, Confucianism, law, and business. I am involved in all of them. Yen Wudi said proudly. Well done. Yen Chuan nodded with satisfaction. Moreover, sometimes when I practice the sword, I can comprehend a lot of things from these books. There are no shackles on my cultivation. Instead, it allows me to continuously break through. Yen Wudi said solemnly. You're right. Books aren't just about the art of war. Most importantly, they're about wisdom. Putting you aside, even I have been reading a lot of books recently. Even though there are many books that are useless to me, they can still increase my knowledge and knowledge. When it's time to use them, I'll be able to comprehend them by analogy. Yen Wudi nodded. Tell me about the Dugu family. What do you think of the 3 sword veins? Yen Chuan said solemnly. Uncle Chuan, you want to study the Dugu family? Why is that, could it be? Yen Wudi suddenly showed a surprised expression. Yen Chuan stretched out a finger and waved it gently. He smiled slightly and stopped Yen Wudi from continuing. But at this moment, Yen Wudi already understood. Suddenly, his eyes widened and his heart started to beat rapidly. His face was full of disbelief. Wudi, remember this. Man proposes, God disposes. Whether you can succeed or not is not important. What is important is whether you have tried. Yen Chuan said in a deep voice. Yen Wudi's face twitched wildly as his expression changed. Then, his expression became firm as he looked at Yen Chuan. A trace of firmness flashed in his eyes, but it was more of reverence for Yen Chuan. You and I share the same blood. In this world, you and I are family at all times. I want to rise, Great Jin wants to rise, and so does the Yen clan. Yen Chuan said solemnly. Yes, I understand. Yen Wudi took a deep breath. Yen Wudi was born as the crown prince, so he naturally had boundless arrogance. From a young age until now, he had never bowed to anyone. Toward Yen Chuyu and the Dugu Sword Emperor, it was more due to the kindness of a father or a teacher. Only toward Yen Chuan did he bow to anyone. In fact, all these years he had been working hard with Yen Chuan as his role model. Uncle Chuan, my 3-sword branch is the weakest in the Dugu family. There are only me and my foster father. The strongest is the 9-sword branch. There are 3 middle void stage experts in his branch. I have a feeling that the 9-sword branch wants to harm the rest of us all the time. Yen Wudi said with a frown. Feeling? Yen Chuan asked curiously. Yes, I don't know why. It's just an inexplicable feeling. Could it be that I'm overthinking? After all, they didn't show any abnormalities. Yen Wudi said with a frown. Yen Chuan stared at Yen Wudi for a while. In the end, he shook his head and said, No, remember, don't doubt this primitive feeling at any time. I didn't expect that you have other talents besides the innate sword bone. Your spiritual sense is naturally stronger than others. This is a good thing. It allows you to sense a lot of external dangers. Use it well in the future. Also, don't tell anyone about this except for me. This is your life-saving method. Yen Chuan said solemnly. Chapter 765. Yes, thank you for your guidance, Uncle Chuan. Yen Wudi was overjoyed. You said that the 9 swords branch wants to hurt the rest of you? Yen Chuan looked at Yen Wudi. Yes, I feel that they are not only targeting the 3 swords branch, but the other sword branches as well. I don't know why. Yen Wudi frowned. The truth will surface eventually. Just be careful in the future. Yen Chuan nodded. Yes. Yen Wudi nodded. I heard that the Dugu family has a heritage of 20,000 years. Do you have any upper void realm experts? Yen Chuan asked curiously. Yen Wudi thought for a moment and said, Yes, the family head, Dugubarin, should be at the upper void realm. Also, there are disciples at the upper void realm in the past generations. Most of them ascended to the immortal realm, but those talented sword practitioners all entered the sword tomb when they were at the upper void realm and lived with the family head. After that, there was no news about them. 50 years ago, the family head summoned all 3 upper void realm experts to the sword tomb. After that, there was no news about them. Yen Wudi said strangely. Sword tomb? That's the forbidden area of the Dugu family and also the residence of the family head. No one is allowed to enter unless summoned by the family head. Anyone who enters will die. Even the branch master of the Nine Swords branch will die if he enters. Yen Wudi frowned. Yen Chuan nodded and pondered for a moment. Secluded cultivation? It was strange enough that Dugu Budian had been in secluded cultivation for 20,000 years. Why did he summon all the experts of the Dugu family? What on earth were they doing? By the way, Uncle Chuan, I seem to have some kind of illness. Sometimes, I feel that my blood is burning and my heartbeat is increasing rapidly. Several times, I thought that I was possessed by the devil. I only calmed down after a long time of secluded cultivation. But I couldn't find out. Yen Wudi said with a complicated expression. Haha, of course you couldn't find out. It's not an illness. It's the divine sense of the Yen clan. Yen Chuan laughed. Divine sense? Super divine ability. Blood demon fantasy world. Yen Chuan laughed. After staying in the Three Swords Hall for a period of time, Yen Chuan personally taught Yen Wudi many things and talked about many things. The relationship between uncle and nephew was also very harmonious. However, during this period of time, the Dugu Sword Emperor had disappeared. A month later, the Dugu Sword Emperor finally returned to the Three Swords Palace, covered in blood. Father, what's wrong with you? Who hurt you? Yen Wudi suddenly exclaimed. Yen Chuan and the Emperor also looked at the Dugu Sword Emperor in surprise. When the Dugu Sword Emperor saw Yen Wudi's concern for him, he felt a sense of relief. It's fine, I did it myself. The Dugu Sword Emperor consoled. Yen Wudi looked confused. The Dugu Sword Emperor was covered in sword wounds and his clothes were stained red with blood. Did he do it himself? Seeing Yen Wudi's confusion, the Dugu Sword Emperor also felt a sense of bitterness. Wudi, ever since my master was brought into the sword catacomb by the patriarch 50 years ago, our bloodline has declined to the extreme. All these years, you've been treated coldly. The Dugu Sword Emperor swallowed a pill and smiled bitterly. Father, you should treat your injuries first. Yen Wudi said worriedly. It's fine, it's just some superficial wounds. Actually, a year ago, something big happened in the family. I didn't tell you about it. Originally, I didn't have any delusions, but ever since I officially recognized you as my son, I couldn't help but fight for you. Unfortunately, my cultivation is too low. If I went, I would only be humiliating myself. The Dugu Sword Emperor smiled bitterly. Chapter 766. Father, what's the matter? Yen Wudi was puzzled. My Dugu family is going to choose a new family head. The Dugu Sword Emperor took a deep breath and said in a deep voice. Choose a new family head? What about Dugu Budian? The Emperor frowned in surprise. I don't know. The old patriarch might be going to the immortal world, or he might have other plans. No one knows what the old patriarch is thinking. A year ago, only the leaders of the 9 bloodlines knew. They were fighting for the new patriarch position. Unfortunately, my cultivation base is too low, so I didn't participate. This time, for my son, I went once, and that's the truth. I only took 100 steps before I was seriously injured. Dugu Jianwang said bitterly. Dugu Budian? Is he going to give up his position? Yen Chuan's eyes suddenly lit up. He took a deep breath and turned to look at Yen Wudi, and then at the Dugu Sword Emperor. Father, although it's just a superficial wound, it's better to heal it first. Rest for a while, and then we'll make a long-term plan. Yen Wudi immediately advised. The Dugu Sword Emperor nodded. The Dugu Sword Emperor went to his residence to clean his wounds. Only the Emperor, Yen Chuan, and Yen Wudi were left in the Three Swords Palace. The Emperor frowned slightly and said, I've been challenging all the palace heads for the past month. Why did they all avoid me? Yen Chuan looked at the Emperor. Yen Wudi explained, Uncle Chuan, according to the Dugu family's rules, the family head can't be disturbed when he's in seclusion. Unless the family's survival is at stake, or someone comes to defeat the palace head of the Nine Swords Palace, you can inform the family head. I must see Dugu Budian. The Emperor said solemnly. Choose a new family head? Yan Chuan frowned and pondered. Uncle Chuan? Yan Wudi also looked at Yan Chuan. Yan Chuan naturally understood Yan Wudi's meaning. He nodded and said, I'll do my best and leave the rest to fate. If possible, I will help the Dugu Sword Emperor become the new patriarch. Yan Wudi nodded. A hint of joy appeared on his face. After years of worship, Yan Wudi had absolute faith in Yan Chuan's words. 2 days later, Yan Chuan, the emperor, the Dugu Sword Emperor, and Yan Wudi were standing on a mountain to the north of the Dugu family. On the mountain, he looked at the foggy area in the north. In this vast region, divine swords were stabbed into the ground. There were also divine swords flying in the sky. They floated high up in the sky, emitting a murderous aura. The sky was so dark that it seemed to be pressing down on everyone's hearts. Just looking at the sea of divine swords in front of them made it hard for them to breathe. It was as if there were tens of thousands of divine swords pressing down on them. This is the sword catacomb, Dugu Sword Emperor said in a deep voice. Father, you said that the Patriarch said a year ago that anyone who passes through the sword catacomb and reaches the Patriarch's residence in the center will be the new Patriarch? Yan Wudi asked in surprise. It's a pity that the sword catacomb is too strong. No one can pass through the 9-sword palace. I only walked 100 steps before I was forced back by the countless divine swords in the sword catacomb. Dugu Sword Emperor said bitterly, Good swords. These swords must have been forged by sword masters. Why would they be buried here? Yan Chuan looked at the countless divine swords in the sword catacomb in surprise. Buried? All the swords in my Dugu family, including my sword and Wudi's sword, came from here. These swords were forged by the Patriarch using the earth fire in the sword catacomb. The Patriarch's sword Dao was invincible, so the swords were forged in batches. After they were forged, they were casually thrown into the sword catacomb. But I didn't expect that the Patriarch's casual discard would create such a powerful sword array. Us juniors are far inferior to the Patriarch, Dugu Sword Emperor said with a bitter smile. Chapter 767. Looking at the vast sword tomb, Yan Chuan took a deep breath and asked, Is this sword tomb really that hard to enter? With my strength, I can only walk 100 steps. The Dugu Sword Emperor smiled bitterly. The emperor narrowed his eyes and said, Dugubadian is at the center of the sword tomb? Yes, he is at the center of the 9 Swords mountain range. Whoever gets there first will inherit the position of the Patriarch. The Dugu Sword Emperor said in a deep voice. Uncle Chuan? Yan Wudi looked at Yan Chuan. Yan Chuan did not act rashly. Instead, he quietly looked at the sword tomb. Looking at the sword tomb, Yan Chuan vaguely saw a formation. However, the formation was unpredictable and changed in the blink of an eye. Let me try. The emperor pulled out his long blade and said, Wait. Yan Chuan stopped the emperor. Everyone looked at Yan Chuan. Yan Chuan gestured at a spot not far away. Everyone looked over and saw a group of 300 people appear. Not far away, 300 figures walked out from a valley. Each of them carried a sword on their back and looked at the sword tomb. One of them was Duginya, the one who spoke rudely to the emperor before Yan Chuan entered the Dugu clan. 300 people with swords on their backs looked at the sword tomb with serious eyes. 9 Swords Palace? Are these all the emptiness realm experts of the 9 Swords Palace? The Dugu Sword Emperor said with a gloomy face. Yan Chuan and his group looked over. The 300 people seemed to have sensed something and turned their heads to look at them. When they saw Yan Chuan and his group, Dugitianya suddenly smiled. Dugitianya suddenly revealed a trace of ridicule as he said, Dugu Jianwang? Haha, your 3 Swords Palace wants to enter the sword tomb with only 2 people? Tianya, shut up. The leader of the group immediately shouted coldly. It was a long-haired man with a red mole between his eyebrows. His face was extremely stiff and expressionless, as if nothing could change his mood. As soon as the red mole man spoke, Dugutianya's face immediately turned solemn. Dugutianya immediately said respectfully. The man with the red mole glanced at Yan Chuan and his group before turning to look at the sword tomb again. That's Dugyenji, the Hall Master of the Nine-Sword Hall. Yan Wudi explained. 8th level of the Middle Void stage? Yan Chuan raised his eyebrows. As expected, he broke through again. The Emperor frowned. The Nine Swords Palace has recalled all Emptiness Realm experts and is preparing to attack the tomb today? The Dugu Sword Emperor said with an unsightly expression. In the distance, Dugu Tianji suddenly turned his head and looked at the nearly 300 people. I know that you all have your own personal grudges, but I don't wish for them to explode at this moment. Remember, I don't care what grudges you have, but you all have to do your best to break through the tomb. If I find anyone slacking off, I, Dugu Tianji, will kill them, said Dugu Tianji coldly. Nearly 300 people answered at the same time. Let's go, Dugu Tianji shouted. Who? 300 people stepped into the sword mound together. The moment the 300 people stepped into the sword mound, the divine swords near them started to vibrate. In an instant, hundreds of millions of sword energies appeared in the surroundings. As soon as the sword energies appeared, they rushed toward the 300 people with surging and ferocious power. Boom! Not only the sword energies, but the 300 illusory figures of the Nine Swords Palace slowly condensed within the sword energies. The illusory figures each held a sword and surrounded the 300 experts. Dang! Boom! Boom! Illusory figures that looked exactly the same as them were fighting with them? They were fighting with themselves? This wasn't an illusion, but an actual entity. The sword mound had condensed their own appearance to fight with them? Kill. Chapter 768. Yan Wudi was dazzled by the Dugu family's sword Dao, and all sorts of exquisite sword techniques were displayed. Wait, these illusions seem to know their sword arts? That's Dugu Tianya's self-created 3 absolutes of the world. I recognize it, but how come the illusions know it too? Yan Wudi's expression darkened. Dugu Jianwang bitterly smiled. This is the terror of the sword tomb. The illusions it creates know all of your sword arts. Unless your sword Dao surpasses Patriarch Dugubuyan's, the illusions will know all of your sword arts. Moreover, they are even more unaffected by emotions than you are. Each of their attacks is even more accurate than yours. This is a domain? Dugubutian's sword domain? Yan Chuan's expression darkened. The Emperor looked at Yan Chuan in surprise. You know about it too? Emperor, let me ask you. Yan Zizai is called the sword demon by you. How does his sword Dao compare to Dugubutian's? Yan Chuan asked with a frown. The Emperor thought for a moment and shook his head. They haven't competed. Yan Zizai said he wanted to duel with Dugubutian, but Dugubutian refused. Dugubutian said he doesn't use swords anymore. Dugubutian said he doesn't use swords anymore? Yan Chuan was puzzled. Yes, I still remember that day. Dugubutian said he doesn't touch swords anymore. He wants to forget about swords. He wants to completely forget about swords. Therefore, he didn't agree to the duel with Yan Zizai. The Emperor shook his head. The family head wants to forget about swords? How is that possible? The Dugu Sword Emperor exclaimed. The Emperor shook his head. That's the truth. Yan Zizai? Yan Wudi's eyes flashed. After all, Yan Wudi had learned about this ancestor from Yan Chuan. It was this ancestor's bloodline that gave him super abilities. Then Yan Zizai is the sword demon? What level has his sword Dao reached? Yan Wudi asked curiously. The Emperor thought for a moment and said, Yan Zizai can also use this sword domain. Once the domain is formed, as long as the sword Dao doesn't surpass his, he can instantly copy all sword arts. Yan Zizai can also use it? Yan Chuan's eyes flashed with seriousness. In the distance, the 300 people from the Nine-Sword Hall were fighting with their selves. They were Dugubutians. In fact, some of them were covered in bloody scars. The illusion knew all of his swordsmanship, and it was even more accurate than him. What was there to fight? Sword-swallowing art. Dugu Tianji shouted coldly. Buzz. The 300 people suddenly stopped, and the sword chi that was spurting out from their bodies immediately converged. The 300 people's as the swords of the 300 people instantly blossomed with dazzling light. Boo! With great difficulty, the 300 phantoms were all killed. The 300 people were overjoyed. However, the blood vessels on their wrists burst. Clearly, the previous attack had injured them. Nevertheless, the phantoms disappeared. They took another 100 steps forward. However, after taking 100 steps, the phantoms appeared again. It was still the same 300 people. However, the phantoms were not only 300 but 3,000 or more. The phantoms appeared one after another. 10 selves stood in front of them. Every self pulled out a divine sword from the sword mound and looked at them coldly. When they were fighting one self, they were already in a difficult situation. Now there were 10 selves? Chapter 769. Standing outside, even the Dugu Sword Emperor revealed a trace of fear. I originally thought that I would be able to enter as long as I destroyed one of the illusions. At that time, I didn't pass this stage. However, even after passing this stage, it still isn't over? There are still 10 more illusions waiting for me? Why did the Patriarch set up such a tyrannical sword formation to obstruct us? The Dugu Sword Emperor said bitterly. No, this isn't the end. I have seen Father set up the domain of the saber. Other than the delusions, there is also the domain of heaven's wrath, which is even more terrifying. This is just the beginning, the Emperor said as he shook his head. Rumble. The boundless sword energy enveloped the 300 people. However, the 300 people were surrounded by 3,000 illusions. For a moment, the sword mound was filled with blood. Even though there were Middle Void Realm experts among the 300 people, every step was difficult. Facing 10 perfect versions of himself, this was more than just a trial. Looking at the scene before him, the Dugu Sword Emperor revealed a trace of bitterness and said, "It seems that it is impossible to obtain the position of the Patriarch." Not necessarily. Yan Chuan's expression changed. Everyone looked at Yan Chuan in confusion. 8 hours later, south of the Dugu residence, Huguang and Feng Yinyang's encampment. Your Majesty! Huguang looked at Yan Chuan respectfully. Yan Wudi and the Dugu Sword Emperor looked at Yan Chuan in confusion. The Emperor stood at the side. Huguang, this is none of your business. Continue to encampment. Yan Chuan said to Huguang. Taoist Yan, why did you bring us here? The Dugu Sword Emperor asked in confusion. I see. The Emperor sighed slightly. Yan Wudi looked at the huge volcano in front of him, and his expression suddenly changed. Father, you said earlier that the swords in the sword tomb were all forged by the Patriarch using earth fire? That's right. There's a volcano in the depths of the sword catacomb. The family head lives in the sword catacomb all year round, and he uses the fire from the volcano to forge. The Dugu Sword Emperor stopped abruptly. He turned to look at the volcano in front of him. Yan Chuan, could it be that this volcano? The Dugu Sword Emperor widened his eyes in disbelief. Yan Chuan nodded. That's right. I've been to the bottom of this volcano before. Deep underground, there's a huge space called the solitary volcano domain. There are countless volcanoes here. I'm sure that the bottom of many volcanoes are connected. Let's go. Perhaps this volcano just happens to be connected to the depths of the sword catacomb. The Dugu Sword Emperor's expression was extremely interesting. Isn't this too fake? The Dugu Sword Emperor only had this thought in his mind. Regardless of the Dugu Sword Emperor's mood, the 4 of them still flew towards the volcano. Boom! The 4 of them each raised a wall of air to protect themselves as they descended into the depths of the volcano. Yan Chuan had been to this volcano before, so he was quite familiar with it. It didn't take long for them to reach the bottom of the volcano. At a glance, there was a sea of fire. It was impossible to see north, south, east, and west. Follow me. When we came, I remembered the route and the distance. I hope I didn't remember it wrongly. Yan Chuan said in a deep voice. Okay. The Dugu Sword Emperor said blankly. Following Yan Chuan, the group quickly descended into the depths of the volcano. Yan Wudi's cultivation was quite weak, so he couldn't hold on for much longer. The Emperor waved his hand and blocked the fire for Yan Wudi. The group followed the original path and returned. Just as Yan Chuan had guessed, this area was completely connected to the Sea of Fire. 10 hours later. Where are we? The Dugu Sword Emperor asked curiously. We should be in the depths of your Dugu family. Below us is the entrance to the sword catacomb. Yan Chuan said in a deep voice. Careful. The emperor slashed with his saber. Boom. Within the sea of fire, there was a violent collision. A sword-shaped flame was shattered by the emperor's saber. Patriarch's sword domain? It even covers the bottom of the volcano? The Dugu Sword Emperor said in surprise. Chapter 770. The Dugu Sword Emperor's remorse. The emperor slashed at one of the swords. You don't have to look for the sword mound anymore. Yan Chuan smiled. Yan Chuan took the lead and flew towards the direction where the swords came from. Shing! Shing! 2 more swords were shot at them. Before he even reached Yan Chuan, a series of cracking sounds could be heard. The magma around Yan Chuan instantly solidified. Even the swords were sealed in it. This is? The Dugu Sword Emperor was surprised. What? The underground was too hot. In the blink of an eye, the solidified rocks turned into magma again. However, there were no more swords in the magma. It's just sword chi and sword intent. There are no real swords. Just follow me. Yan Chuan said. Yes. Yan Wudi said excitedly. The emperor frowned and looked at Yan Chuan. The emperor felt that Yan Chuan's body seemed to have absorbed a huge amount of heat in that instant. He didn't absorb it, but seized it. It was a domineering seizure. They were in the depths of the volcano. It was unrealistic to solidify magma here. However, Yan Chuan was solidified. The emperor could even feel the coldness from Yan Chuan's body even from a distance. The emperor looked at Yan Chuan again. The group quickly flew towards the place where the swords were gathered. Yan Chuan was like a freezer. Wherever he went, the magma would solidify instantly. The swords would also solidify instantly. The journey was smooth. Soon, they arrived at the entrance. At this point, there were even more sword edges. If it was someone else, they wouldn't be able to gain any advantage at all. However, Yan Chuan was different. The thunderclouds in the sky could absorb boundless amounts of heat. This path seemed to be tailor-made for Yan Chuan. Phew! The group flew upwards. After passing through a long volcanic tunnel, they finally arrived at the mouth of the volcano. Bang! The 4 of them flew out of the magma. However, there was no more sword chi around them. This is too smooth. The Dugu Sword Emperor was speechless. This made the Dugu Sword Emperor feel very unrealistic. How is this possible? The group flew out of the volcano and stood at the top of it, looking around. Looking around, there were divine swords everywhere. Divine swords were flying in the sky while the ground was filled with divine realm swords. Only the crater in the center of the volcano had hundreds of flowers blooming, and there was no danger to speak of. Father, look, there is a hall over there, isn't it? Yan Wudizes said with excitement. There was indeed a palace not far away. There was a palace hall inns. Not in was. There was a plaque on hall. Heaven Palace Hall. Palace Hall? Have we really arrived at the residence of the patriarch? Dugu Jianwang was stupefied. This is? Father, let's go. Yan Wudi said excitedly. Okay. The Dugu Sword Emperor felt like he was dreaming as he nodded. The group flew towards the palace hall. Happiness came too suddenly. Dugu Jianwang was still dizzy. Could it be that he had become the next patriarch in such a muddle-headed manner? Just as the group flew towards the palace hall, a heart-wrenching voice suddenly sounded. Dugu Sword Emperor. The voice was filled with endless grief and indignation. It was a kind of great grief that hated the heavens and earth. The Dugu Sword Emperor's nerves tightened when he heard the voice. Everyone turned their heads and looked over. At the edge of the sword tomb's inner circle, there was a dazzling purple divine sword. The divine sword was 10 zhang long, and it looked down at the battlefield inside the sword tomb. Chapter 771. On the battlefield, 50 experts struggled while bathed in blood. They were surrounded by countless purple longswords. These 50 experts were Dugu Tianji, Dugu Tianya, and the others. The giant sword flashed and a group of long swords rushed toward an emptiness realm expert like a rainstorm. Boom! The godly swords roared. Under the rain of swords, an emptiness realm expert was cut in half. Another emptiness realm expert fell into a pool of blood. Dugu Tianya and the other emptiness realm experts struggled bitterly. Almost everyone was covered in blood. Almost a day had passed. Out of the 300 emptiness realm experts, only 40 or so were left. The others were all buried in the sword tomb. Pushing forward step by step, the Nine Swords Mountain Range displayed its majestic power. Finally, it had reached the final step. However, the last step was like a gift from heaven. They couldn't cross it no matter how hard they tried. The giant sword was like a god. It blocked everyone's path and killed them one by one. Although the experts were filled with hatred and sorrow, victory was in sight. Although many people had died, victory was in sight. Although they couldn't break through the giant sword, victory was in sight. Dugutinya didn't feel anything until he saw Yan Chuan and the other three. At this moment, the members of the Nine Swords Mountain Range all showed expressions of hatred. How is this possible? How is this possible? Dugutinya was filled with sorrow and hatred. All the experts who were bathed in blood and fighting showed expressions of despair. 2 lower emptiness realm experts, 1 divine realm expert, and 1 chi realm expert? They don't have any injuries on their bodies. How is this possible? How is this possible? Dugutinya was filled with sorrow and hatred. In order to enter the center, everyone had sacrificed too much. However, in the end, they realized that the Dugu Sword Emperor, who looked down on them, was ahead of them. God was unfair. God was unfair. Everyone was shouting in their hearts. It was difficult to get rid of the depression. Everyone's lungs were hurt by this depression. Boom! The giant sword flashed again. Another round of explosion occurred and charged toward an emptiness realm expert. With just a scream, the emptiness realm expert was instantly cut into pieces. Let's hurry to the heaven-mending palace. Yan Chuan frowned and shouted. Yan Chuan didn't want to cause any trouble at this time. It was time to harvest the fruit. There was no room for hesitation. However, the Dugu Sword Emperor couldn't bear to see this happen. Dugu Sword Emperor! Quick! Save us! Save us! Cut that giant sword apart! Dugu Tinya shouted. The Dugu clan is of the same breath and branch. Save us! Dugu Sword Emperor, you can't leave us to die. Dugu Sword Emperor, cut that sword apart. Dugu Sword Emperor, you are the patriarch. We no longer have any thoughts of fighting for the patriarch's position. We only wish to preserve our lives. Dugu Sword Emperor, you will be the head of the family from now on. We are all members of the Dugu family. Save us. Everyone roared together. The Dugu Sword Emperor couldn't bear to see this happen. When Yan Chuan saw this, he immediately felt that something was wrong. Dugu Sword Emperor, go and see Dugubadian first. After that, come and save them. Yan Chuan shouted. That's right, father. Yan Wudi also shouted. Boom. Another emptiness realm expert was cut into pieces by the giant sword. Father. Yan Wudi shouted. I can't just sit and watch. They are still members of the Dugu clan. The Dugu Sword Emperor shook his head and said, boom. Another emptiness realm expert was cut into pieces. Chapter 772. The Dugu Sword Emperor immediately rushed over. Seeing that the Dugu Sword Emperor had come to save them, everyone's face lit up. Looking at this scene, Yan Chuan could only feel anxious and helpless. After all, he was still an outsider and couldn't persuade them. Slash. The Dugu Sword Emperor slashed at the Tenjianglong giant sword. Boom. The Tenjianglong giant sword was instantly sent flying by the Dugu Sword Emperor, and the giant sword killing formation was immediately dispelled. Boom. The sword formation surrounding Dugutinya and the others instantly became much smaller. The pressure instantly disappeared. Dugutinya, who was nearby, instantly charged through the sword mound. Haha. Dugutinya excitedly shot into the safe zone. Dugutinya. The Dugu Sword Emperor had just shouted. However, he received Dikenya's malevolent gaze and a domineering sword. Bastard! In the distance, Yen Chuan's expression changed and the Jade Emperor's sword flew out. Chi! Dugutenya's sword was too fast. It was so fast that it instantly slashed into the Dugu Sword Emperor's shoulder. Furthermore, the sword slashed from the hilt to the abdomen. It looked like the Dugu Sword Emperor would be cut in half. Ding! The Jade Emperor's sword knocked Dugutenya's sword back. The Dugu Sword Emperor's body was also sent flying. While flying in the air, the Dugu Sword Emperor widened his eyes. His face was filled with disbelief and boundless regret. The Dugu Sword Emperor was almost cut in half. He spat out blood as he shouted hatefully. Father! Yen Wudi rushed over in panic. Bang! Yen Wudi hugged the Dugu Sword Emperor. Father, father! Yen Wudi couldn't help but jiaohu. His eyes were red. But why? The Dugu Sword Emperor looked at Dugutenya and spat out blood in despair. He had saved him. How could he do this? Dugutenya merely sneered at the Dugu Sword Emperor. He turned to look at the Jade Emperor's sword that was blocking him. Middle void stage? Yen Chuan frowned as he looked at Dugutenya. Boom! At the sword tomb, another loud sound rang out. Dugutenji barged in with a loud bang. Dugutenji, the hall master of the Nine Swords Temple, looked at the dying Dugu Sword Emperor in Yen Wudi's arms and said indifferently, Dugutenya, well done. Dugutenya said smilingly. The Dugu Sword Emperor, who was already heavily injured, spat out another mouthful of blood. Dugutenji landed and immediately looked at the distant Heaven Mending Hall. Heaven Mending Palace? Ha! Dugutenji's eyes flashed with excitement. Let's go! Dugutenji shouted. Dugutenji and Dugutenya instantly shot towards the Heaven Mending Palace. Buzz! Two figures instantly blocked the two of them. Yen Chuan and the Emperor. Get lost. Dugutenji said coldly. Emperor, use all your strength. You and I, one each. Yen Chuan said in a deep voice. Use all my strength? The Emperor sneered. He waved the bronze long saber in his hand and a fierce saber aura ruthlessly slashed towards Dugutenji. Emperor, you are only at the lower void stage. You can't beat me. You couldn't beat me last time. This time, I have broken through. You can't beat me even more. Dugutenji stabbed with the long sword in his hand. Boom! The saber and sword collided. Jade Emperor's sword formation. To deal with Dugutenya, Yen Chuan quickly formed a sword formation and instantly enveloped Dugutenya. Humph! Jumping clown. You want to block my way? Tenya sword formation. Dugutenya coldly snorted from within the formation. Boom! Dugutenya quickly formed a sword formation with the sword in his hand and faced Dugutenji with the formation. The four experts brazenly made their moves. The others were still fighting in the sword tomb. However, the pressure was much less now. They should be able to come out soon. Father, you will be fine. You will be fine. Yen Wudi unceasingly poured his magic power into the Dugu Sword Emperor's body. However, the Dugu Sword Emperor was almost cut in half. Dugutenya's sword had destroyed his foundation. How could he recover so easily? The Dugu Sword Emperor said bitterly, My son, I brought this upon myself. I have let you down. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.